Chapter 385. Luo Nan's mind wasn't too good the next day. He sat in the classroom, his mind dispirited most of the time. His mind was blank during class. Not a single bit of what the teacher said entered his ears. Xuelei only met up with him before the third class. He was shocked to see Luo Nan's condition. "You broke your training?" "I stayed up late." Luo Nan's answer was concise and clear. He had been practicing the dripping sword until midnight yesterday. After the night class, he couldn't help but go into an out-of-body state. He crossed half the city and entered the cloud world from gear. He continued his search, constantly familiarizing himself with the environment. His search yielded no results, but he didn't sleep the entire night. His mind was dispirited from going back and forth. Xuelei was a clever person. His first reaction was, "Did you miss your morning and evening classes?" "Nope." Luo Nan rolled his eyes and yawned. Xuelei spoke very seriously. "It's about the same even if you didn't miss it. Blood and energy are nourished and consumed during training. It's very complicated. Your way of playing is like lighting a lamp and boiling oil. The effects are halved." "Then what should I do? How about I sleep for a bit during class and you help me keep an eye on things?" "That's fine too." Luo Nan reached out to poke him. "Bad friend." Luo Nan buried his head in the crook of his arm before Xuelei could retort. He fell asleep in the span of 2 or 3 breaths. To be honest, although he hadn't left the house for the past 2 days, he had experienced too many changes, absorbed too much information, and learned too many things. His brain had reached its limit, and he really couldn't take it anymore. In any case, this was a public class. The enormous lecture hall was the best cover. A few possibilities flashed through Luo Nan's mind before he fell asleep. For example, Xuelei calling him, Peony calling him to begin the search mission, the society calling him, and so on. But things were hard to predict. What truly woke him up from his dreams wasn't any of these factors. It was a stimulation that came from the mental plane. It came from a position that seemed very close, but he couldn't grasp it. The Wraith sign? Luo Nan's thoughts captured the most crucial factor. But before he could truly sort out the clues, a scorching and explosive feeling suddenly exploded. It followed the incorporeal connection on the mental plane and came rumbling, shaking the god wheel. The situation was simply like a meteorite falling from the heavens. It smashed into a vast ocean of glaciers. The god wheel shook for a moment, and the surging and abundant soul strength created waves. It instantly formed a dozen or so tides that came crashing down. Ow! Luo Nan was really caught off guard. The god wheel frame constructed from the external neuron was stable, but the feeling of pain and danger was real. He screamed. His body tensed up, and his entire body. His knee hit the bottom of the table, and the tables and chairs in the lecture hall were fixed. A muffled sound rang out and Luo Nan's entire body bent like a prawn. He hugged his knees and sat down. Xuelei was shocked to the side. The first thing he did after coming to his senses was to throw his entire body over to protect Luo Nan. He believed that Luo Nan had suffered an assassination attempt from headquarters or some other power. He wanted to prevent Luo Nan from suffering a second injury. The classroom was silent for a moment, and then the lecturer on the podium said coldly, "What are you doing?" In the next 3 seconds, the classroom went from buzzing to roaring laughter, and the discipline in the classroom instantly collapsed. As one of the best educational institutions in Xia City, Acumen College had never been a place where one could spend their days leisurely. Although they didn't go as far as to implement some sort of militarized classroom discipline, there were naturally conduct points and strict examinations to punish students who caused trouble in class. Luo Nan had shaken the entire lecture theater to the point of buzzing. Xuelei had directly pounced on Luo Nan with the weight of empty tie. If Luo Nan didn't raise his blade and make an example out of Xuelei, he would be letting down the class time system. The lecturer on the lectern was a middle-aged woman in her 40s or 50s. Her facial features were quite good-natured, but her expression had turned cold and hard after receiving such a torment from Luo Nan and Xuelei. "Get up, I'm fine." Luo Nan struggled to break free from Xuelei's oppression. He endured the pain in his knees with great difficulty, and when he straightened up, he saw this scene. He was already exhausted to begin with, and his reaction was much worse than usual. He was even more sluggish, and he could only display a stupefied expression, unable to do anything. Xuelei was about the same to the side. He still hadn't switched out from his bodyguard identity. Right at this moment, the young female teaching assistant, who was a support staff member, walked over to the lecturer's side. She said something in a soft voice. The middle-aged female lecturer's anger was suppressed, and she spoke coldly. "Students, please stand up." Luo Nan and Xue Lei glanced at each other, and they obediently stood up. "What are your names?" Luo Nan and Xue Lei had already accepted their fate. They lowered their heads and said their names, but they were a bit vague. The female lecturer didn't care. She just said, "Students, if any one of you isn't feeling well, you can go to the infirmary and get treated as soon as possible. Don't disturb the other students in class." Yes. He's having hysteria. I'll immediately take him." Xue Lei reacted, and he directly made Luo Nan into a mental patient. He made a supporting gesture, and he supported Luo Nan as they walked down step by step amidst the chaotic laughter of the students. Luo Nan's knee was injured, and he really was limping. The two were like this. They didn't dare to raise their heads, and they cut a sorry figure as they left the classroom. Luo Nan's absent-minded mind recovered a bit just before they left the room. He noticed one thing. The young female teaching assistant who had persuaded the lecturer was actually someone he knew. Tianxi. They hadn't contacted each other since the incident at Ocean Sky Cloud City. Presumably, Tianxi needed quite a long period of time to sort out her emotions. But he never expected that they would meet again in such a manner. Luonan didn't feel comfortable saying hello, so he left in a hurry with Xue Lei. But the bell rang before the elevator even reached the bottom floor. Luonan only found out after asking Xue Lei that it was the last class of the morning. This fact hurt Luonan quite a bit. Things wouldn't have escalated to this extent if he had been a few minutes late. His wristband vibrated at this time, and the name of the contact appeared. Luonan rushed to pick up the phone. "Senior Sister Tian, thanks for just now." The caller was none other than Tianxi. Her tone was gentle and calm, just like a friend she often interacted with. "It's nothing. Teacher Wu has a very good heart. She asked for your name, and she didn't scan it through the class system. That means that she wants you to open up. Otherwise, it would be hard to avoid deducting conduct points. That's all thanks to Senior Sister Tian's help. I'll treat you to a meal later." Luo Nan spoke in passing, and he suddenly felt that these words were very familiar. It seemed that he had said these words more than once in the past few days. Actually, this was normal. As his social range expanded, his interpersonal relationships gradually became more complex. It was hard to avoid social interactions. What other words could it be if he didn't say these words? Chapter 386. That's right. This was in line with Ocean Sky Cloud City's victim setting. Luonan thought this way, but when he heard the sigh, he felt quite subtle. His mind became much more lively and quick-witted. He immediately smiled and said, "Then Senior will treat me to a meal." Tianxi reacted extremely quickly. "Tonight. Today." Luonan jumped in fright. "I have an event tonight." "Really?" Tianxi's tone was filled with doubt. Perhaps she was even a bit disappointed. This made Luonan feel embarrassed. His mind spun, and he suddenly had an idea. "Oh right. Senior, you should come and participate tonight." Tianxi was surprised. "Invite me?" "Yeah. You actually know them. It's Mo Peng and Mo Han. Remember? They're your cousins? Last time at Frost River Reality." Her voice suddenly cut off. Luonan's mind became more and more agile. He knew that Tianxi was probably a bit embarrassed. After all, the last event was to create an opportunity for her to socialize with Luonan's third cousin, Mo Chiu. It seemed that nothing had come of it. It really wasn't that kind of thing to participate again. Well, with Luonan's social skills, this kind of slip-up was inevitable. Luonan didn't know how to remedy the situation when Tianxi chuckled. "Okay. I just happened to bring Tianqi. He's close to your age. We had a good time last time. I heard that he keeps in contact with someone from your family." "Ha! Something like that happened?" Regardless of whether Tianxi was telling the truth or not, it was fine as long as she didn't mind. Luonan let out a sigh of relief. For him, this arrangement could be considered as killing two birds with one stone. Mo Peng and Mo Han were both devil incarnate level fellows. There should be someone older to suppress them. Tianxi had a socializing experience with Mo Chiu, so she had an awkward halo. Let's see how those two fellows deal with this. Wasn't it a bit despicable to think like this? Luo Nan ended his communication with Tianxi and shook his head. His thoughts spun, but his expression sank. The event tonight was just a small matter. The extraordinary power and corresponding information that the Wraith sign transmitted just now were the key issues that needed to be carefully understood. Logically speaking, the Wraith sign was still in the Blood Flame Order's territory. He was herded every day, searching for other faced arachnid avatars to devour. From a city's safety perspective, the Wraith sign was a first-rate scavenger. This sort of action of the Wraith sign had brought quite a bit of trouble to Luo Nan in the past. The Wraith sign supported Luo Nan on the path of imbalance between body and soul, walking further and further. However, ever since Luo Nan constructed a clear framework of body and soul, coupled the rotation of the God Gear and Body Gear, the Wraith sign's sudden hunt and devour, the negative effects it brought to him grew smaller and smaller. Luo Nan was more than happy to leave the Wraith sign with the Blood Flame Order to collect some information and secrets. But in that instant, the Wraith sign exploded with an attack on the mental plane. It could be said to be the most intense attack Luo Nan had ever encountered since he received the Wraith sign. According to Luo Nan's conjecture and understanding, the instantaneous undulation was very much like when it suddenly encountered a powerful enemy. It unleashed its full combat power. Then it won the battle and swallowed up the enemy. Only then did the comet collide with the Earth appear. The truly intense segment only lasted for an instant. Luo Nan didn't have the time to see it before he missed it. Later on, he was distracted by the embarrassing incident in the classroom. By the time he had the time to pay attention, the Wraith sign had already calmed down. Luo Nan could only see the Blood Flame Order's herder, Elder Mo Luan, from the Wraith sign's perspective. The herder was in the form of a black smoke soul body. He was flying swiftly and swiftly. However, the black smoke that was hard to see with the naked eye was scattered and indeterminate. Elder Mo Luan's condition was a bit of a mess. He should have been injured. Luo Nan had done some research on Elder Mo Luan recently. He knew that Elder Mo Luan was a core power of the Blood Flame Order. He was a dual cultivator of spells and martial arts. At his peak, he was an existence that even extraordinaries would cast sidelong glances at. Elder Mo Luan was only 60 years old. He was only in the prime of his life. He should be at his peak. Unfortunately, he had suffered serious internal injuries during the split of the order. He had never been nimble, and it was even harder for him to break through the boundaries of extraordinaries. His bodily functions rapidly declined. In recent years, he had relied more on spells to support himself. But even so, he was able to suppress an elite of the society like old Mr. Bai. It was quite amazing. And if Elder Mo Luan was truly forced into a corner, Elder Mo Luan would ignite his life force and summon the blood flame will to descend. Elder Mo Luan's combat strength was extremely terrifying. Then came the question. Who could kill and injure this veteran B-rank power? It must be known that even He Yuan had borrowed the psychic wave network to invite President Ouyang to carry out a long-range attack. The result would have been the same. But if Elder Mo Luan was at the level of President Ouyang, how could the Wraith sign win in battle and devour him? Oh right, what did it devour again? The structure of Luo Nan's God Gear was gradually stabilizing, but it was affected by the impact. The water level of the vast iceberg sea rose explosively, and there was a marvelous sensation of a sudden rise in temperature. He observed for a moment and discovered that this was the result of the friction and conflict between two sources of power. Clearly, the thing it devoured this time wasn't another human-faced arachnid's avatar, but something else. The difference in nature is quite large. After forcefully devouring it, digesting it is quite strenuous. Luo Nan guessed in a circle, but he was unable to come to a conclusion. It must be known that the Wraith sign was intrinsically chaotic. It acted purely by instinct. It lived forever in the present. It had no concept of the past, the future, and it had no relevant memories. Luo Nan didn't know how to inspect the memories of his believers. Even if he knew, he wouldn't know where to start. He could only watch helplessly as Mo Luan and the Wraith sign secretly escaped into the distance. There was no other way. He could only give the Wraith sign a reminder. He would immediately shift his consciousness whenever a clear change occurred on the other side. Noon was extremely tight and precious for Luo Nan and Xue Lei. Naturally, They politely declined the school hospital. The two ate lunch after activating the extravasated blood in Luo Nan's knee. Then it was time for afternoon classes. Luo Nan cultivated in addition to the eye's orifice. He also cultivated in the mouth and tongue orifice. He had to take care of his internal organs, so the time required was longer. After everything was done, he only had a short period of time to take a nap. He closed his eyes and opened them again. He had to go to class. It was hard not to feel a bit emotional. Well, it could also be said to be grumbling. Morning, afternoon, and evening classes. It's not easy to persevere through them. My time is divided into 3 parts by these 3 classes. Of course, it would be great if I could cultivate wholeheartedly, but a slight change would make it hard to satisfy both sides. That's why. Why is it that many martial arts seniors like to go into seclusion once they reach a certain level? It's because they want to avoid the interference of the outside world to the greatest extent. However, since we're cultivating in this world, we will be affected by the turbid currents of the human world. How can we always follow the prescribed order and be smooth sailing? Cough. You can't use these words as an excuse. Got it, senior brother. Luo Nan groaned. He stretched his back on the trolley, and the bones, flesh, and tendons of his entire body crackled. The endless turbulence and the rising temperature of the vast ocean of icebergs was a bit lacking in stability. But when it coupled with the body gear, the interference force formed was much more active. Luo Nan had his afternoon classes earlier, but he felt the heart lantern burn brightly. The spiritual pool was overflowing. It followed the rise and fall of his vital energy. It was like a stream of snow melting under the spring sun. It seemed warm yet cold, and it revolved around his internal organs. His tempering suddenly increased by 20 to 30%. It could be said that he had received some nourishment. This was a sign that the eye's orifice and the mouth and tongue orifice were resonating with each other. Luo Nan originally thought that he would need at least 10 days of effort. He never thought that there would be results in less than 3 days. It had to be said that this was closely related to the great supplement pill that the Wraith sign had forcefully swallowed. Xue Lei, who was next to Luo Nan, nodded over and over as he listened to the signs that appeared on Luo Nan's body. You've really entered the threshold of fleshly body tempering. Let's practice Sans Ho this afternoon. Let's spar. Luo Nan shot a glance at Xue Lei's arm that could reach his thigh. He didn't respond to Xue Lei's words. He just asked, tonight, the large activity area, Frost River Reality. You're going too? Xue Lei obviously wouldn't refuse. He even reminded Luo Nan, don't cause trouble. Leave early and go home. Cause trouble. Luo Nan shrugged. It's done. Then I'll see you at gear. Let's practice Sans Ho first. Xue Lei emphasized once more. I have a class today. Doesn't that just leave notes on the most important people of the world? New class. Luo Nan blinked his eyes. He reached out and grasped the air. Then he opened his palm. A bead of water appeared to be stuck to his palm, but it was actually suspended in midair, spinning and spinning. There were only 2 classes in the afternoon, and they were related to writing. In any case, Luo Nan wasn't too interested in them. He didn't pay too much attention to the specifics. He just moved his finger slightly, letting the small bead of water revolve between his fingers. This bead of water was not the external neuron that had undergone a rebirth. It was condensed later. The condensation ring and the 5 auxiliary structures were complete. The bead of water swam across his fingertips like a blunt blade cutting across skin. It looked as if it could collapse at any time. This was not an illusion. If Luo Nan exerted a bit too much force with his fingers, it would be tantamount to placing a bomb on his fingertips. He would suffer. Luo Nan's control over his fleshly body was far from enough. If he practiced for too long, an accident would certainly occur. He completely relied on mental control. This was a relatively good training method. It was one of the daily cultivation techniques taught by Her Majesty Empress Wu in the intermediate training class in Xia City. But right now, Luo Nan's mind wasn't completely focused on it. The Wraith sign had just sent a signal. After over an hour of tossing and turning, the unlucky elder Mo Luan had finally returned to his secret hideout. He was communicating with the others. This was a high-class member suite of a large fitness center. The interior of the room was decorated in a purplish-red color. The lighting was dim, and it carried a bit of an exotic atmosphere. The room wasn't small, but there were only 2 wooden armchairs set up in the corner. Yoga mats were placed in most of the space. There was also a treadmill, a bicycle, an elliptical machine, and other equipment. There was also a small hot spring in the corner. Elder Mo Luan's fleshly body was already here. He sat cross-legged in the hot spring naked. However, Mo Luan's soul had yet to return to his body. His injuries had yet to heal. Perhaps returning to his body would allow him to recover a bit faster, but it would make his body, which was already full of hidden injuries, even worse. Mo Luan could only endure for a while. Mo Luan's soul floated in the room, and the wraith sign was right next to him. There were 2 wooden armchairs in the room. One of them was empty, reserved for Mo Luan. Even if Mo Luan didn't sit, he still had to show respect. 6 core members of the order had already received the news and were gathered here. Luo Nan was able to recognize all of these people after a month of intermittent identification. Chapter 387. Mrs. Holder was a woman that left a deep impression on people. Luo Nan had the temperament of a homebody. He didn't really recognize people, but he never forgot her from the first time he met her. Yes, it must be admitted that Mrs. Holder's image was quite good. She was around 40 years old, and she was in the gym room right now. She wore a deep purple knitted wool dress and stockings of the same color. She paired it with black velvet high heels. Her hair was tied up in a seemingly casual bun, and a few locks hung down the side of her forehead. She was elegant and concise, like a noble woman who had been in a high position for a long time. However, her somewhat westernized 3-dimensional silhouette, her deep eye sockets, her quiet and serene gaze, and the strange slender bloody scar on her right cheek gave her a tough and callous aura. Upon closer inspection, she looked more like a strong woman who had experienced many experiences. In the secular world, she was indeed a queen of the business world. The high-class fitness center they were in right now was one of her businesses. She had inherited her husband's Castle Financial Group, and it had rapidly expanded over the past 10 years. She controlled several well-known fashion and sports brands, and her influence in the field of entertainment and sports grew more and more astonishing. Luo Nan had once looked up information on Mrs. Holder. She was a legendary figure in Xia City. During the Dark Age when the Blood Flame Order was internally divided, the reigning chief oblatum of the order cowered before the chaotic conflict of doctrines. This caused the order's sacrificial vessel to be destroyed, causing irreparable losses. In the moment of life and death, it was this Mrs. Holder who beheaded the previous oblatum, her husband. Furthermore, with his strong conviction, he had withstood the violent backlash of the Blood Flame will. Amidst the raging blood flame, he had inherited the position of officiant. He had also relied on the rapidly expanding financial resources of the secular world to stabilize the situation during the order's relatively weak stage, preserving this branch of the Blood Flame Order. The bizarre bloody scar on her right cheek was the mark of the ultimate trial of the Blood Flame will. It was the testimony of the soul-stirring events of the past. Due to her actions of beheading and killing her husband, she became known as the Black Widow of the inner world. Her reputation was terrible, but within the Blood Flame Order, her prestige was unparalleled. Practically everyone was awed by her unyielding and iron-blooded nature. Even a senior elder like Mo Luan was extremely respectful toward her. At this moment, aside from Madame Holder, who was seated on a chair, everyone else was standing. Vice First Oblatum Yin Lu, who had once crossed paths with Luo Nan, leaned lightly on a treadmill beneath the floor-to-ceiling glass window of the wooden corridor outside. His body language was probably the calmest. She had started her career as Lady Holder's confidential secretary. Although she no longer held a position within the financial group, she was the person in charge of the Frost River reality project that the financial group had dispatched. In the secular world, her position was low but she held great power. Within the Blood Flame Order, he was one of the successors that Madame Holder paid close attention to. Apart from Yin Lu, the strong man standing respectfully to Lady Holder's right was also an important figure in the church. His name was Meng Chong, and he was one of Madame Holder's trusted aides. He had once been a security captain. Some unreliable reports said that he was Lady Holder's lover, but in reality, Meng Chong was the only one in the Blood Flame Order, apart from Lady Holder and Elder Mo Luan, who had passed the final trial of the Blood Flame will. Logically speaking, his physique should be on the monstrous level, but he was extremely low-key. He never participated in any sort of ranking, so it was very hard to make an accurate judgment. As for the other three, there was an old man with a scholarly air. He was another elder of the order, Zhang Yuanzhen. He was a standard member of the primitive religious sect. He was over a dozen years older than Mo Luan, but he was more skilled in theoretical work. His qualifications in the order were a bit worse than Mo Luan's. Zhang Yuanzhen used to be an advisor type of character. Later, Lady Holder raised his position in the order. Although he was useless in terms of combat strength, it was precisely because of his and Mo Luan's existence that this faction of the order gained a more orthodox atmosphere in this era of the collapse of sacrificial artifacts and conflicts of laws and logos. Right now, it was this old man who was the most anxious. He was not worried about the injured Mo Luan, but about the wraith sign that was a substitute sacrificial artifact. Of course, in the Blood Flame Order, they called it the mold. How's the mold? Mo Luan, do you have any accurate information? How did you do it? Zhang Yuanzhen appeared to be very anxious and at a loss. He was a standard theorist. His own level of extraordinary power was only at the sea level. According to the observations and experiments of the order, under normal circumstances, the human-faced arachnid's clone would exist on the mental plane at the border of the abyss region and the polar domain. That was the special domain of extraordinaries or B-rank powerhouses who specialized in mental senses. Ordinary ability users were simply unable to sense it. It was only when hunting that the human-faced arachnid would approach the material world. In fact, strictly speaking, there was not a single person in the Blood Flame Order who fulfilled these two hard criteria. Lady Halder had gone through special channels to obtain the herding technique that could capture the human-faced arachnid's clone and forge it into a sacrificial artifact mold. Right now, only Lady Halder, Elder Mo Luan, Deputy Ablatum Xin Lu, and Ren Hong could use this technique among the core members of the order. Only these four people could see it under normal circumstances. Mo Luan could not stand this old fellow. He was disinclined to respond. Lady Halder was deep in thought, so she had no obligation to respond. Yin Lu was just about to respond when Ren Hong, who was close to Zhang Yuanzhen, spoke first. Old Zhang, the mold is very normal right now. It is currently digesting its food. The structure of the Blood Soul Temple has become more complete. The sound of blood and fire is very clear. Ren Hong's age was close to Lady Holder's. He was around 40 years old. His appearance was ordinary, but his words and actions were mature and appropriate. He normally did not reveal himself, but when he was preaching, he was extremely inciting. He was the backbone of the order purely by relying on its business. Normally, he would discuss the theories and preaching methods of the order with Zhang Yuanzhen. Their relationship was relatively close. Zhang Yuanzhen did not have any misgivings towards Ren Hong. At his age, he really was like a child. He grabbed Ren Hong like he was seizing a toy. He wished he could stomp his feet. Let me hear it. Let me hear it. Ren Hong glanced helplessly at Lady Holder. Lady Holder's eyelids drooped slightly. This could be considered as consent. Don't take too long. Ren Hong first warned Zhang Yuanzhen before grabbing Zhang Yuanzhen's wrist. He adjusted the frequency of the fluctuations of his soul strength, bringing Zhang Yuanzhen's soul strength inside. It was like an amplifier, allowing Zhang Yuanzhen to listen to the sound that came from the depths of the mental plane. Blood, blood, blood. Fire, fire, fire. The monotonous, manic, and incessant sound was like a gradually rising platform that pressed down on the mental plane. Layer upon layer, there was no end to it. And because it was nothingness, it could collapse at any moment. After listening for a long time, one's internal organs would begin to convulse and contract. However, in Zhang Yuanzhen's ears, this sound was like the sound of nature. He laughed so hard that his eyebrows could not be seen. Aya, this is like eating a great tonic. The 2120 steps of the Bloody Soul Temple's path of blood fire now has 1755 steps. Ren Hong confirmed the number, then reminded him, time's up. How can it be so fast? Zhang Yuanzhen wanted to act shamelessly, but Ren Hong gently and firmly refused Zhang Yuanzhen's request and even pulled away. Zhang Yuanzhen wanted to toss and turn again, but Ren Hong gave him a meaningful glance, reminding him that the Lord Ablatum was right in front of him. Zhang Yuanzhen had been raised by Mrs. Holder, so he was afraid in his heart. His face twitched, and he finally stopped pulling. He turned to face the master seat and smiled. Then he began to count with a deadpan expression. Last time Mo Luan reported the number of steps to be 1569. My goodness, this time it's 186 steps? Lu reminded him from the side. Old Jiang, there was a successful hunt last week that didn't make the report. At that time, it was already 1605 steps. A whole 150 steps is too much. Especially the blood flame path, which starts at the end of the 1600 steps. Even if it can't compare to the final 120 steps of the blood flame altar, it still isn't easy to construct. What in the world is this thing? It's so powerful. If Luo Nan hadn't used the Wraith sign to spy on the high-level communications of the blood flame order, he would certainly have been completely baffled. Actually, the so-called blood flame path was the quantitative standard of the blood soul temple structure that the blood flame order had implanted into the human-faced arachnid's avatar. It was divided into 6 levels. The first 400 steps were a stage, and the last 120 steps were the final sublimation stage. Not only did it have numerical quantification, it also had an image. Right now, the hell-like structure that had been assimilated into the Wraith sign's body was piled up layer by layer from the center. It was like a mountain peak of cooled lava. The mountain path on top of the mountain twisted and turned. There were many pores in the mountain rocks, and lava flowed and spat out. It could be described as a river of lava and a stream of fire. It could change the mountain's terrain and shape at any time. But no matter how it changed, there was a majestic and awe-inspiring building at every certain height on the mountain. It was either a palace hall or a cave. They were built next to the mountain, as if they were one entity. This was the embryonic form of the Blood Soul Temple. Right now, 4 buildings had been formed, representing that 4 stages had been completed. The next 5th stage was the formation of the altar on the mountain peak. The final 6th stage was the 120 steps of the blood flame altar. Through the blood sacrifice, the blood flame will was internalized into the entire mountain peak, thus forming the complete appearance of the Blood Soul Temple. Luo Nan lacked a deep understanding of secret orders, but he could tell from his senses that this entire process was a step-by-step process. It was quite standardized. Aside from herding, there were endless sacrifices and refinements every day. They were mysterious and contained magical powers, reflecting the accumulation of the Blood Flame Order's laws and logos. As an internal member of the Blood Flame Order, she naturally did not view the problem as simply as Luo Nan. Jiang Yuanjin had been worrying about the future construction of the Blood Soul Temple. The first 2,000 steps are fine. The 120 steps of blood sacrifice are the most difficult. Just based on the current scale of the order, it is a bit strenuous to perform sacrifices day and night. If we could have this kind of sacrifice. Ren Hong also agreed. That's right. The Order of Justice acted earlier than us. It is said that before in Wang's accident, the Order of Justice had already sent the human-faced arachnid to headquarters. In other words, no matter how we graze in Xia City, it will be hard to gather a complete human-faced arachnid. If we want the mold to be effective, it is hard to avoid seeking other methods. Right now, it looks like the mold's devouring ability still has room for expansion. This is a good thing. Lu was a bit more pessimistic. It's hard to make a judgment just by looking at an example. Jiang Yuanjin clapped her hands. You'll have to ask Mo Luan about this. It was dangerous this time, but if we can really find a way to assist in the blood sacrifice, then it would truly be a boundless merit. Just as her voice fell, a mass of light and shadow unfurled in the center of the room. Mo Luan did not participate in the conversation from start to finish. He just transformed the relevant memories into energy information that could be recognized by specialized equipment. Then he transformed it into an image, allowing the core members of the order to understand the situation at the time. This sort of ability to reproduce memories seemed simple, but in reality, only those who had a deep understanding of the mind and the soul could do it. Luo Nan felt ashamed of his inferiority to Mo Luan's deep and ruthless ability. As the light and shadow changed, it was tantamount to replaying Mo Luan's experience at the time. Due to the nature of human thought, it was hard to avoid subconscious processing and distortions. However, it was enough to serve as a reference. Luo Nan found the scene of the incident familiar. He thought about it carefully and recognized that this was the recycling stratum of the Twin River District. This place was filled with gangs and negative emotions. It was indeed one of the best places for the human-faced arachnid to reside. Mo Luan gave a brief introduction of the background. He used the mental plane to directly transmit telepathically. However, Luo Nan could hear everything clearly due to the mental connection between him and the wraith sign. I was just doing my routine patrol at the time. Mold suddenly became very excited. I thought that it had discovered prey, so I immediately went over. But then I saw a bird. It wasn't a bird, right? Jiang Yuanjun relied on his age to speak more casually with Mo Luan. Mo Luan didn't bicker with him. He responded calmly, "Indeed. I only discovered that it wasn't a bird when I got closer. It was a wing-hand bloodbat." Wing-hand bloodbat. Actually, Luo Nan was already stupefied when he saw the image. Mo Luan's explanation only gave him a confirmation. It really was a wing-hand bloodbat. Luo Nan had participated in the Trigate Security Conference last week. This was the first thing that was introduced. Luo Nan had the deepest impression of it. He knew that this thing possessed a highly contagious virus. It was a mutated type, and it could even control biological aberrations. It possessed an extremely high level of threat. Among the rewards provided by Trigate Security, this thing's corresponding bonus was ranked at the top. It couldn't be this coincidental, right? Luo Nan found it a bit hard to accept this astonishing coincidence for a time. However, he found it even harder to imagine that such a dangerous aberration had other channels to enter and exit Xia City at any time. If this really was the case, then the world line would change into Resident Evil. If it really was the target that Trigate Security mentioned, then wouldn't there be any dregs left after the Wraith Sign made his move? Trigate Security had said that the Wraith Sign wanted to capture the wing-hand bloodbat alive and retrieve the corpse if it was dead. Well, it didn't matter if it was the Wraith Sign or Mo Luan's out-of-body state. They were just wandering around on the mental plane. Even if they killed the wing-hand bloodbat, they shouldn't have taken the corpse away. Luo Nan immediately became excited. He stared fixedly at the image of light and shadow. He wanted to find the surrounding landmark buildings and confirm the coordinates. However, as he carefully observed, Luo Nan felt that the image was a bit strange. He didn't know what was strange about it for a time. Jiang Yuanjun was also very shocked. It really is a wing-hand bloodbat? How did this thing enter the city? Even the city guards are blind. Oh, it seems a bit different. Mo Luan answered, "It really is different from the species found in the wilderness. Actually, I've always wondered if this thing can even be considered a wing-hand bloodbat." The image of light and shadow just happened to give them a close-up view. This time, whether it was the group of core members of the Blood Flame Order up close or Luo Nan, who was 2 or 3 city districts away, they all saw the problem. Chapter 388. Too tough. This was Jiang Yuanjun's evaluation. It could be said that she was right on the mark. This wing-hand bloodbat was a lot thinner than the image data Luo Nan had seen. Luo Nan still remembered the countless number of wing-hand bloodbats fluttering under the setting sun in the information provided by Trigate Security. Though they weren't large in size, every single one of them was like a savage and powerful canine. Their 4 claws were sharp, their muscles were solid, and their fur was glossy and smooth. Their skin and bat wings were a bit dim, but they were powerful in their flaps. One look and one could tell that they weren't easy to mess with. However, the one Mo Luan encountered was a typical symptom of dysplasia. Its wingspan was at most 20 centimeters, and it was shriveled and skinny. Only its eyes were blood red, giving it the feeling of extreme insanity. It wasn't even 11:30 in the morning at the time. It was the end of the day on the recycling stratum, the time when the visible light was the most. This wing-hand bloodbat shuttled back and forth between the sunlight and the shadows. Its skin and bat wings let out a strange sound when they flapped. According to the information provided by Trigate Security, this wing-hand bloodbat was in estrus. Of course, it was unable to find its own kind to satisfy it within the boundaries of Xia City. This made it all the more irritable. Perhaps it was this kind of emotion that attracted the human-faced arachnid to discover its target. The Wraith Sign immediately pounced over restlessly. Unfortunately, these 2 vicious creatures weren't dealing with the problem of estrus. They were engaged in a life-and-death battle. From the perspective of a normal person, they would at most see the bat shadow circling in the air. They wouldn't be able to see the deeper mysteries. However, the light and shadow displayed Mo Luan's memories of the time. The levels and details were far richer. This was the first time Luo Nan saw an ability user's memories of the mental plane. He couldn't take his eyes off it for a time. The conflict between the two sides erupted in an extremely direct manner. The wraith sign revealed a human face and an arachnid body. It had 6 eyes and 8 feet, and a chaotic and berserk mental attack radiated out. The wing-hand bloodbat's reaction was a bit slower, but its counterattack was extremely fierce. It didn't use its claws and other substantial weapons. Only its eyes deepened by a shade, and a dazzling bloody mist soared from its body. Thousands of human faces could be vaguely seen as it soared. There were also strange demonic shadows interweaving, treacherous and savage. Such a situation greatly exceeded everyone's expectations. Therefore, even though Jiang Yuanjun knew that this was a scene reenactment, she still cried, "Ah!" from the gym. At this moment, Mo Luan's perspective was very close. It was clear that Mo Luan was also very surprised at that time and unconsciously moved closer to observe. The wraith sign showed its incredible fighting instinct. Facing the bloody smoke, it withdrew its explosive spiritual attack instantly, and the void outside its body was twisted. Perhaps it was because the bloody soul temple inside had gradually grown in scale, but it was already showing signs of interfering with the material world. At first glance, the momentum seemed to be slightly weaker, but in terms of endless depth, it was far superior. It was simply like a miniature black hole. The result of the collision between the two sides also proved this point. The blood smoke and cloud chi collided with the outer edge of the distorted void and involuntarily twisted. It lost its burning momentum and was trapped and swallowed up. In a breath's time, there was not much left. As for the wraith sign, his demonic body instantly swelled in size. Luo Nan thought that this was the moment the wraith sign delivered the meteorite. At this point, it could only be said that the devil sign had won. However, no one expected that the wraith bloodbat would lose most of its blood smoke and cloud chi. Instead, its viciousness was aroused. Its body that was as thin as a match suddenly expanded, becoming as round as a ball. It simply didn't give the wraith bloodbat a chance to react. It exploded with a bang and a bloody mist sprayed everywhere. The hearts of everyone watching the video trembled, including Luo Nan. In his eyes, it wasn't the wraith bloodbat that exploded. It was a million. It was this bloody mist that made even the rampaging wraith sign vigilant. He directly escaped into the depths of the mental plane, temporarily hiding. On the other hand, Mo Luan was too close. He was sprayed head-on by the remnants of the bloody mist. His field of view swayed in an instant, and his energy became chaotic. The video ended there. So it turns out that we were caught in the crossfire. Jiang Yuanjun let out a breath, dispelling her nervous mood. There was a bit of mockery in her tone. However, she soon said in distress, "I was just thinking that if the wraith bloodbat was useful, we could go to the wilderness and kill around. It wouldn't be any worse than a blood sacrifice. But after watching for so long, it seems that something isn't right?" It really wasn't right. Everyone present was a veteran ability user. They had gone to the wilderness at least a dozen or so times. The wraith bloodbat wasn't some rare species. Everyone had encountered them before. However, they had never seen the wraith bloodbat in Mo Luan's memories. The wraith bloodbat used the blood mist as an attack method. Moreover, if something went wrong, the wraith bloodbat would immediately self-destruct. It could even injure a veteran B-rank power. Are there any left behind? Mrs. Holder cut to the chase at this time. In an instant, the gym entered its most serious state. Mo Luan understood what Mrs. Holder meant. She was asking if there were any samples of the force of the impact that injured him. Generally speaking, this was a very difficult matter, but Mo Luan answered, "There are." An extremely fine thread of blood, like a gossamer thread, appeared out of thin air as he spoke. Actually, it was sent out by Mo Luan's soul body to appear before everyone's eyes. When this thread of blood was sent out, it was only a millimeter in length. But its diameter was even thinner. It was like a broken spider silk. If it wasn't for the brilliance of the bloody light, people with old eyes like Jiang Yuanjun wouldn't have been able to see it clearly. The nature of the thread of blood was extremely strange. It had only appeared in front of people for a few seconds, but it seemed to swell a bit and elongate a bit. Moreover, it twisted its head and swayed its tail like a living bug. Mo Luan spoke of the results of his observations during this time. "For now, I am unable to define the mode of existence of this thing. It appeared within the blood of the wing-hand vampire bat, but now it exists on the mental plane. It endlessly devours and paralyzes soul bodies, rapidly growing stronger. He was still looking for an adjective when Mrs. Holder cut to the chase. A biological fission reproduction. A kind of mental microorganism, or perhaps a virus. Jiang Yuanjin suddenly clapped his hands. A human-faced arachnid. Everyone understood what he meant. Yinlu unconsciously stood up straight. It really is similar. Could it be a Darksider species? A species that we have never discovered before? A Darksider species? Luo Nan, who could be called the best listener, suddenly became interested. This thing was a Darksider species? If this really was the case, then it would be the second species that he had seen with his own eyes. Luo Nan had studied the human-faced arachnid in detail during this period of time, but it didn't yield any results. The Darksider species or Darksider lifeform was a new concept in and of itself. It hadn't even been 2 years since it was proposed. A complete system had yet to be formed, and the amount of information was pitifully small. Luo Nan suspected that with his understanding of the human-faced arachnid, he could list a few phenomena and write a paper. He would receive treatment from a top journal, and he would earn so many honor points within the society that his hands would go limp. Therefore, he still had to rely on himself for everything. Luo Nan discovered that this blood virus was quite different from the human-faced arachnid through his observations. It was just as Mo Luan said. This thing's stance was quite ambiguous. It switched back and forth between the material plane and the mental plane. Essentially speaking, this was because its living environment was at the juncture between the mental and the material plane. It was an amphibious species. From the results of his current observations, the roots of its growth and strength were all on the mental plane. It didn't have the ability to absorb nutrients from the material world. However, it was unable to dive deeper into the mental plane. According to the conventional division of the inner world of 3 zones, 1 region, and 1 domain, this thing could only move about in the topmost layer of the shallow zone. It was like a mosquito larva on the surface of the water. But if it continued to split and reproduce, then it would be hard to say. After all, it could injure Mo Luan, but it couldn't rely on its current abilities. Luo Nan could sense that the Wraith sign, who had been resting idly in the depths of the mental plane after Mo Luan released the blood virus, aroused its instinctive attention. But perhaps it saw that this thing was too weak. It wasn't enough to fill the gaps between its teeth, so it lost interest. Perhaps it wanted to raise it? While Luo Nan was researching, the others weren't idle either. It's also a parasitic species? Ren Hong tried to make a judgment. So to speak, that wing-hand vampire bat is actually a victim host? Is this parasitic relationship a designated one, or is it an arbitrary choice? Perhaps he just wanted to express his thoughts, but the meaning behind his words was like a cold wind that blew the atmosphere in the room cold. With the complexity of mutants and the pitiful depth of human research, it wasn't strange to suddenly discover a new species, especially the Darksider species that came and went without a trace. However, the situation of being parasitized still made people feel unhappy. In the research of mutants, parasitic and symbiotic relationships were actually quite common. During the craziest mutant era, large quantities of insects and microbes on Earth suffered from warped mutations. They evolved into similar abilities, bringing about an extremely terrifying chaos. There were often people who said that the ability users that appeared in the new era were products of a kind of parasitic and symbiotic relationship. They were mutations caused by special viruses entering the host cells. But it was very hard for people to accept this theory. As humans who possessed high levels of intelligence, they instinctively loathed the sort of image that threatened their self-awareness. 9 out of 10 Darksider species are parasitic. There's no need to say too much. Lady Halder ignored her own instincts with her powerful willpower. She focused her gaze on the swimming blood virus before her eyes. After observing it seriously for a period of time, she spoke softly. It uses the blood essence of the fleshly body to drive a viral fission on the mental plane. This sort of interference method seems berserk, but it's actually precise and mysterious. Is it that hard to get rid of? For me, it would take a few days. It shouldn't be hard if I'm careful, but if I increase the number of samples, then I'll need to observe it. How's the scene? I've already arranged for people to protect it. But due to its nature, I haven't begun to collect samples for now. Come with me again. Yes. No one else had the leeway to interrupt the conversation between the 2 core figures of the Order. Only when the principles for handling the matter were decided did Lady Holder change the topic. With Mo Luan's condition, it won't be suitable for him to continue herding for a period of time in the future. We need to adjust the candidates. Everyone discussed this. Everyone's expressions were solemn. What Lady Holder said was a very realistic matter. The founding ceremony of the Blood Flame Order was on December 21st. There were only 40 days left until today. The mold for the Blood Soul Temple had just reached the 5th stage. The progress was smooth, but it could not be interrupted no matter what. In reality, as the human-faced arachnid incident receded and the hunting operation continued, it became more and more difficult to search for the human-faced arachnid's clone in Xia City. The slightest bit of slack could bring irreparable negative effects to the reconstruction of the sacrificial artifact. The reason why Lady Holder was interested in the parasite on the body of the wing-hand bloodbat was because she saw a possible alternative plan. But before she could confirm the feasibility of this plan, she still had to complete the most basic of tasks. Zhang Yuanzhen coughed. Relying on his age, he opened his mouth and listed out the matters that didn't have much significance, but they still had to be considered. The herding law in our hands has already appointed 4 shepherds. Aside from Mo Luan, there are the Lord Ablatum and 2 Deputy Ablatums. There are 3 candidates, but considering that the Lord Ablatum needs to prepare for the sacrificial ceremony and coordinate with the Blood Flame Will every day, it is hard for him to split his time. So there are only 2 candidates, Yin Lu and Ren Hong. Which one do you choose? Lady Holder asked directly. Ren Hong. Zhang Yuanzhen's response was very decisive. She even gave Yin Lu a glare. Yin Lu is running around outside every day. She's tied up with mundane matters. How could she have the time to herd? Yin Lu smiled bitterly and lowered her head. She didn't want to argue with this old man. According to Zhang Yuanzhen's thoughts, as a deputy ablatum, she should devote her entire body and mind to teaching affairs. As for the business matters, there would naturally be professionals to handle them. For this reason, the old man gave Yin Lu quite a bit of face. Ren Hong? Lady Holder seemed to be muttering to herself, but she also seemed to be asking. Ren Hong was a bit unsure of her intentions, but he still lowered his head and said, I am willing to temporarily take over the matter of herding. I will listen to the Ablatum's arrangements. Lady Holder declined to comment. She continued to call out names. Meng Chong. Meng Chong responded bluntly, I'm not good at it. I have no objections. Yin Lu? Yin Lu was the person involved. She could only say, I will listen to the boss's instructions. She continued her habits from her days as a confidential secretary. She didn't refer to the Lord Ablatum as the boss. Lady Holder's gaze swept across everyone in the room. In the end, her gaze stopped on the face of the person who had been silent all this time. Wu Kuei. Wu Kuei was an ordinary man who could be drowned in the crowd at any time. His stature was short and stout, and he had no sense of existence at all. Luo Nan had observed him for a long time, but Luo Nan still didn't know what Wu Kuei did. Luo Nan didn't know what Wu Kuei relied on to rise to the core of the Blood Flame Order. Wu Kuei's words weren't unique either. Let the Ablatum make the decision. This wasn't the first time Luo Nan had seen this sort of situation. Right now, Lady Holder's words were practically the law of the Blood Flame Order. Aside from Zhang Yuanzhen, who purely researched theory and didn't have any schemes, always relying on his seniority to say a few words, the others generally didn't have their own opinions. Mo Luan. Mo Luan suddenly butted in at this time. I feel that something isn't quite right. The matter of coordinating the will of the Blood Flame is something that not only you, but also Ren Hong. Right now he's the main force of preaching. The 40th anniversary ceremony of the establishment of the order is just around the corner. He has to participate in a series of warm-up ceremonies. This is unavoidable. Zhang Yuanzhen retorted. In the end, he isn't the Ablatum. Squeezing out a bit of time should be fine. The problem is that the Blood Soul Temple has already established a connection with the outside world after entering the 5th phase. They are more sensitive to psychic wave interference. Which of the recent ceremonies hasn't had powerful psychic waves? They also need to mobilize the will of the Blood Flame. All of these things may affect the structure and growth of the Blood Soul Temple. Even if it's hard to judge whether it's positive or negative, do we really need to take this risk before the blood sacrifice? Zhang Yuanzhen's expression changed slightly when she heard this. She immediately changed her words. We have to be on guard. Lady Holder nodded slightly. Then it's Ian Lu. A bunch of words were said, but in the end, it was Lady Holder who made the final decision. Mo Luen would always provide the best reason for her to speak. These were the rules of discussion of the Blood Flame Order. Lady Holder's gaze turned to Ian Lu. December 21st is the ceremony of the establishment of the order. Nothing can go wrong. For the next few days, hand over the affairs in your hands that can be handed over. Don't think too much. I will send Meng Chong to follow you. You must ensure that nothing goes wrong. Chapter 389. The matter with the Blood Flame Order came to an end, but Luo Nan could not help feeling a bit vexed. It was getting harder and harder for him to dismount. It could be seen that the core members of the Blood Flame Order were extremely determined. They were all aiming to reconstruct the sacrificial vessel during the establishment ceremony. However, due to a freak combination of factors, the Wraith sign had replaced their original mold. This was an irreversible process. If he took back the Wraith talisman now, the Blood Flame Order would become a great enemy, and they would not rest until one of them was dead. However, if he dragged it on, it would only be a temporary peace. He would have to take it back sooner or later, and the longer he dragged it on, the more headache he would have. Unless he gave up the Wraith sign, but how was that possible? Luo Nan tossed this vexing problem to the back of his mind for the time being. He thought about how Mrs. Holder was going to investigate the scene. He wanted to go as well. Even if the 1 million had already exploded, as long as he could find some clues, it would still be helpful for the investigation later. Luo Nan did his best to recall the video data, searching for the relevant area. Thanks to the powerful network search function of the Information Age and the consciousness search function of the Hexaear, even if it was just an impression, he would soon get the answer. He still felt that it wasn't enough, so he used his authority to use the real-time Street View mode on the psychic wave network to adjust the public cameras and confirm it again. The order of the recycling stratum was terrible. Most of the relevant cameras had been destroyed, but Luo Nan spent a bit of time piecing together the images. He was able to find the area where the incident most likely occurred, and he discovered a glaring pool of blood there. At this moment, there were people taking pictures in the surroundings, all of them very carefully. This is the place. According to what Mo Luen said, he had already arranged for people to deal with the scene. That was why it was said that this kind of old man was the most annoying. Luo Nan wanted to eat the first bite of soup, but he was afraid that it would be too much. Glancing at his watch, the first class was about to end. After class, he would find a quiet place and enter an out-of-body state. It would only take him a minute or two to reach the River Wu district. Luo Nan's plan was quite good, and the preliminary work was quite in place. But the true big boss was unwilling to cooperate. On the podium, the cultured lecturer of the writing class said, "Let's not end the class. For the rest of the time, let's practice in class. It's a very basic character logic." "Teacher, I want to leave my body." Luo Nan had to kneel when faced with the reality that he had to attend writing classes in a row and that there would be tests. Even if he wanted to sleep on the table, he couldn't. What to do? Given Madame Holder's shrewdness, there wouldn't be anything left of her once she arrived at the scene. Luo Nan's mind was in a mess, but the teacher didn't care about him. She directly threw out the requirements for writing practice. The goal of the practice was character logic. There were a series of requirements. The student had to make sure that the words they wrote corresponded with each other. The initial requirement was simple. Describe an impressive person. Make sure you know the person well. Family, friends, and classmates were all fine. He could start with a description of their appearance. Of course, this involved a series of details such as the shape of the face, mouth, nose, eyes, eyebrows, beard, and so on. The Luo Nan of 2 months ago might have had a narrow range of choices, but it was much easier now. He had chosen Xue Lei, whom he had interacted with the longest. Yes, Xue Lei was closer to the understanding of normal people. Xue Lei was his target. The writing teacher must have a prying eye. Following that, there was a series of information such as address, health, family, education, love, marriage, history, religious orientation, actions, and thought patterns. Finally, the interaction with the target should also be listed, such as specific instances of helping or sabotaging each other's actions. There was a commotion in the classroom. Did this mean that their friendship was over? Luo Nan wrote in a very relaxed manner. It was like a sketch pieced together from words. This was his advantage. At most, he only needed to consider the content that exceeded normal thinking and logic. Perhaps Luo Nan was affected by this relaxed state, but the key points in his mind suddenly opened. As he wrote and wrote, his train of thought flew away from Shuelei. It was just like what his teacher had always tried to express. Characters were a collection of social relationships. A single person's ability was limited. The help of friends and social cooperation were the only ways to increase efficiency. Why did he have to think of such an inefficient method like skipping class? His train of thought was clear. His writing might not be divine, but he knew what to do next. A strand of his mind was thrown out, and ink responded dozens of kilometers away. Luo Nan didn't have the time to pay attention to the progress of Trigate Securities' operation over the past 2 days. He just divided a bit of his mind to ensure that ink was obedient. Actually, the official search mission had already begun on Sunday. Right now, it was the free time for professionals. Peony and Long Seven had split up to lead a group of people to collect clues. They would summarize and analyze the clues every day, but there had been no progress so far. In other words, luck was very important. Luo Nan activated the telepathic thought he left on Ink's body, and his consciousness descended. Ink was already used to this. It flapped its wings twice, expressing its welcome. Luo Nan's consciousness had just arrived, and he had yet to do proper business when he first felt a bit of peculiarity. Since Ink had a relatively low level of intelligence, Luo Nan's telepathic thought descended without any pressure. He didn't need to worry about anything. He had the most connections, and the corresponding feeling was the most familiar. Because of this, he immediately felt that something was different when his telepathic thought moved. It was like listening to a familiar song. The singer was the same, but there was a clear difference between the live version and the studio version. It looked like the effects of his 2-day closed-door training over the weekend were greater than he had imagined. Speaking of which, Luo Nan had gone from the fundamental format pyramid to the structure of the living starry sky with clairvoyance. From his internal organs, 9 orifices, and 6 roots to the state of his soul body, all of them had undergone relatively significant changes. This sort of change was all-encompassing. The resulting effects involved the structure of Luo Nan's body and soul, as well as all aspects of his internal and external connections. But because the effects were too broad, many things could only be experienced after actual contact. For example, Ink. After the format pyramid transformed into a star atlas, the connection between Luo Nan and his believers was no longer shackled by materialization. In fact, Luo Nan had become much clearer on an intrinsic level. He discovered at this moment that his observations on the mental plane had already taken on the mode of a telescope due to the effects of the atrium cyclotron 2 days ago. Through warping and weaving mental curtains, Luo Nan could obtain high-definition information from afar using a special format. This was the most crucial reason for the substantial increase in his mental sensing ability in recent times. Before, Luo Nan had only considered the changes brought to him by the telescope mode. Now he saw that Ink had become an important fulcrum and reference in this mode. It was like a Cepheid variable star in the universe. Astronomers borrowed its light cycle to modify parameters and measure interstellar distances with greater precision. But from Luo Nan's perspective, every detail seemed to have exceeded his requirements for precision after being modified by Ink. So much so that he only had a vague feeling that he was unable to accurately describe it. What sort of reasoning was this? Ink became a bit excited due to the existence of Luo Nan's telepathic thought. But no one else could understand its mood. Peony and the others were on the platform of a tall building in the Forest Wall district right now. They were using viewing binoculars to scan the city district. Ink stood on the binoculars, its claws digging into the outer shell. It was fine if it didn't move, but once it moved, it caused the lens to shake greatly. It was very hard to observe. Peony didn't even raise her head. She continued to use the binoculars to look around, but her slender fingers accurately found the target. She lightly flicked Ink's thick beak. "Mr. Ink, do you have any thoughts?" It carried a bit of childishness, but it also seemed to be teasing. In the classroom, Luo Nan subconsciously rubbed his mouth. He finally recovered from the changes in his ultra-precise perception. He connected the rubber band on Ink's ankle to communicate with Peony. He didn't really know how to deal with this woman, so he simply spoke his coordinates. Go here. Peony stopped adjusting the binoculars' direction. She straightened her body and focused her gaze on ink. She raised her eyebrows slightly, and a rarely seen expression of astonishment appeared on her face. Then she communicated with her soul strength. You've discovered something? Are you sure? Where's the source of the information? How could Luonan tell her? He couldn't find any other reason, so he simply shut his mouth and didn't answer. He wanted to say, do as you see fit, but he was afraid that Peony would retort back, so he simply had ink close its eyes and pretend to be confused. Only after doing all of this did he come to a realization. Peony knew that there was someone behind ink. Close your eyes, my ass. Luonan was greatly embarrassed. There was no need to mention how to remedy the situation. However, Peony didn't get angry. She snapped her fingers and spoke to the support personnel of Trigate Security beside her. We're going to change the location. Oh, the effects are great. This was probably the fabled version of do as you see fit. Ink still had the appearance of pretending to be asleep. Actually, he had completely absorbed the changes in the outside world and transmitted it back. Luonan's mind exploded with joy when he saw that an elite character like Peony, who was hard to grasp, was going to act according to his thoughts. Then he suddenly recalled that there were still people from the Blood Flame Order there. Soon, Haldev and Emo Luan would arrive as well. He wanted to warn Luonan, but if he did this, his previous act would immediately collapse. After a moment of hesitation, Luonan found a reason for himself. Let Trigate Security make contact with the Blood Flame Order. Maybe they can get more information? Oh, this idea isn't bad. The work efficiency of Trigate Security was quite high. When they heard Peony say that they had a clue, they immediately dispatched a low-altitude aircraft. They only used 12 minutes to complete the transfer. When Peony and the group of support personnel arrived at the target location Luonan mentioned, they arrived a bit faster than Mrs. Haldev and the others, who were quite far away. Mrs. Haldev didn't move forward after seeing Peony and the others arrive. She just let the on-site management personnel of the Order negotiate with Trigate Security. As for how Luonan knew, the Wraith sign wasn't involved in this. That fellow had already changed his breeder, and was currently recuperating at the headquarters of the Blood Flame Order. Luonan relied on ink. Ink flapped its wings and flew up, circling within the shadows of the tall building. Behind the tightly sealed doors and windows, pairs of eyes stared at this enormous bird. They were either excited or terrified. Luonan himself didn't know that this crow was a celebrity in the recycling stratum of the River Wu district. News of the great battle with Jack a month ago had spread through the ubiquitous criminal channels of this place. The residents who lived here more or less knew that a powerful and mysterious power had crushed the Jack Mafia that originally occupied this place. The main force of the mysterious power was a burly man. This was too lacking in uniqueness, so people took the initiative to choose a more legendary symbol, a large crow. The mysterious power had the special ability to control crows. Every time a crow's cry was heard, a calamity would descend, causing one's mind to go insane and fall unconscious. Jack Mafia's well-equipped sniper squad was easily defeated in this way. In the end, the mysterious power didn't take control of the recycling stratum. The territory of the Jack Mafia was divided among other powers, large and small. However, due to the free and unrestrained behavior of the mysterious power, the surrounding residents, who had been tossed and turned by the gangs for a long time, unconsciously felt a bit of reliance on the mysterious power. Perhaps the mysterious power taking control of the recycling stratum would bring about a completely different and new life? Driven by such emotions, the reappearance of the enormous crow caused a considerable portion of the residents of the recycling stratum to feel a surge of emotion. It also caused a large number of gang members, who had gathered here due to the unknown value of the scene of the incident, to tremble with fear. Luonan didn't understand the cause and effect, but he could feel the actual psychological effect that Ink's appearance brought to the surrounding people. If the mental state of the surrounding people could be said to be a sprinkling of magnetic sand before, then Ink, who was shuttling back and forth between the shadows of the tall buildings, was like a powerful magnet. No matter where the magnetic sand was scattered, it would stand erect, aiming the magnetic poles of the opposite direction at Ink's location. From the perspective of the living starry sky, hundreds and thousands of stars were affected by the gravitational pull of Ink's constellation. They moved in unison, incomparably uniform. At the same time, the stars that weren't affected by the magnetic force were especially eye-catching. A considerable portion of them had a corresponding uniform displacement pattern. It was just that they were incompatible with the system Luo Nan had set up. The source of some patterns could be seen with a single glance. For example, the people of Trigate Security obeyed Peony's orders and obeyed the arrangements of their superiors. They were like galaxies revolving around a binary star system. There were also some patterns that couldn't be seen. For example, the on-site personnel of the Blood Flame Order didn't even know where the big shots of the Order were. But they were members of the Blood Flame Order in the end. Their long years of activity in the Order caused an extremely subtle connection to exist between their energies and the Blood Flame Will and the First Ablatum. In the living starry sky with Luo Nan's self-format as the core and the clear order, these connections were like pedestrians that violated the traffic rules and randomly entered the flow of traffic. They brought about chaos of varying sizes, but they were clearly distinguishable. Even though the distance spanned by the connections exceeded the limits of Ink's perception, and exceeded the range of the living starry sky. But when all the intruders walked in the same direction, all the connections converged in a relatively fixed region. Luo Nan was naturally able to guess. There was a dark star there that was hard to see with the naked eye. It was releasing an invisible and powerful gravitational pull. Ink circled around twice before quietly expanding its flight trajectory outward. It gradually brought the possible locations of the dark star into the range of Ink's senses. A dozen or so seconds later, a dark nebula that was hard to pry into appeared within the living starry sky. Chapter 390. So mental senses could be used in this way? Luo Nan's train of thought opened up. The clairvoyance mode of the telescope was clearly a sort of systematic clairvoyance. Every believer, including Ink, was a node. They provided perceptual planes and details that could be mutually referenced and supplemented. Although the number of details might not be perfect, they reflected each other. According to the framework of formatting theory, they formed a relatively closed system that covered more and more layers. In this way, all existences that were not part of the system became especially prominent. No matter how minute the reverse arteries and veins were, they would be magnified, making his senses exceptionally sharp. There was no one else like this method in terms of early warning function. Mrs. Holder certainly saw Ink. Perhaps she knew that this crow was extraordinary, but she absolutely could not imagine that there was another person who was several dozen kilometers away, using this crow to observe her. There was another person at the scene who was very sensitive. It was Peony. She must have sensed Ink's abnormal flight trajectory. She raised her head to look. It was unknown how she judged it, but her gaze soon pointed toward the skyscraper where Mrs. Holder was, as well as the relevant floors. From Luo Nan's angle, he felt that there seemed to be a confrontation of gazes between Peony and Mrs. Holder. It was hard for Luo Nan to judge whether or not Peony saw Mrs. Holder, but Mrs. Holder's gaze was certainly locked onto Peony. Well, you're the scapegoat. Luo Nan felt the secret delight of successfully shifting the blame after getting into trouble. He also felt a corresponding sense of accomplishment. This was the first time in his entire life. He wasn't worried about Peony's safety. After all, the most powerful woman in Xia City stood behind her. Mrs. Holder's Blood Flame Order and the Castle Financial Group were admittedly powerful forces in Xia City, but they were still lacking in comparison to Her Majesty Empress Wu. Peony, the person in question, didn't seem to care too much. Or perhaps it could be said that she didn't have the corresponding sense of crisis. She received a call at this time, and the smile on her face grew even more radiant. Her curved eyes seemed to flow with colorful light. Be it the Trigate security personnel beside her or the Blood Flame Order personnel, they all couldn't help but steal glances at her. It was hard to avoid their emotions from rising and falling. The living starry sky had a reaction. Darling, have you arrived yet? How's my setup? One fatal strike. Peony completely disregarded this. Her mind had already withdrawn from the mission. She allowed her mood to melt into her smile and flow naturally. As long as you're happy, it's fine. No problem. Tonight, everyone's going to turn the heavens high and celebrate your success. He should be her boyfriend. But what's with that doting expression? After the writing class, it was time for the society's activities. Luo Nan was liberated. He was still thinking about the confrontation, entanglement, and communication at the recycling stratum of Shuanghe district. Many pieces of information would not have appeared at the time, Or perhaps Luo Nan would not have been able to see them even if they had appeared. However, he was certain that both the Blood Flame Order and Trigate Security would hold a meeting to discuss the situation after he returned. It shouldn't be a problem for him to piece together a rough picture of the truth. Seiji had all the benefits, yet he remained uninvolved. It was a bit like a villain, but it did make Seiji feel great. At a time like this, it was none of his business whether others were in a good mood or not. Luo Nan waited for his car at the parking spot. His mind was pondering over the problem of system perception. It was just as he had understood before. He discovered an excellent early warning method. Though it was still lacking in many ways, it didn't seem difficult to make up for it. All he needed to do was expand the number of believers a bit and scatter them across the various city districts. They would connect seamlessly with each other, forming a closed system. Targets that were not part of the system, especially ability users who possessed self-logic, would be more or less accurate. What security and bodyguards did he need back then? Even the Skynet system that covered the entire city wouldn't be as sharp as he was. Even if the Order of Justice's First Ablatum, Deputy Secretary General Gong Qi, and other powerful people came to kill them, Luo Nan would be able to know their positions and coordinates the moment they stepped into the boundaries of Xia City. They would be hundreds of kilometers away, and Luo Nan would be able to notify President Ouyang and Her Majesty Empress Wu to take to the skies to intercept them. Deske. Just thinking about it was exciting. As for expanding the number of believers, Luo Nan scratched his head. The streetcar just so happened to arrive. He boarded the car and continued to scratch. He felt a bit subtle. Luo Nan was certain that he had never truly regarded himself as a god. He had only seen Bamboo Pole's paper. He had borrowed the relationship between believers and gods to describe the various mysteries of formatting theory. That was all there was to it. Therefore, Luo Nan wasn't like the contemporary secret orders. He didn't deliberately ponder over the so-called doctrines and rituals. Then, he used all sorts of methods to actively expand the scale of his believers. So far he had accepted believers like Ink and the Wraith Sign. He didn't care about Rue Wen, who was a special example that appeared and disappeared from time to time. His true human believers numbered no more than 3 people. Bays, Xie Junping, and Cat Eyes. Black Tiger Bays was someone who relied on force to survive. His personality and conduct had been polished by the Order of Justice for a long time. He could be said to be plugged in and out. There was no adjustment period. Xie Junping wasn't a person of the same circle. He was muddle-headed and completely unaware. Luo Nan deliberately played down this relationship and forgot about it. He just left it there and let Xie Junping do what he wanted. As for Cat Eyes, she was probably the only example of a believer that possessed self-awareness and self-awareness. And the entire process couldn't be said to be smooth. Cat Eyes certainly had to bear the responsibility for this matter. But even if she had courted death herself, the series of developments that followed, especially the mental and willpower torment, made Luo Nan, the beneficiary, feel quite upset in his heart. This was especially true after the format pyramid transformed into a star atlas. The materialized chains disappeared, and a more essential connection became prominent. Luo Nan inspected his believers one by one and discovered that Cat Eyes was acting extremely dispirited. Her mental state was worrying. This was absolutely not a situation Luo Nan wished to see. Luo Nan sat in the last row of the trolley, his fingers rubbing against his hair. As he pondered, his thoughts unconsciously shifted through the living starry sky. He saw Cat Eyes once more. It was the middle of the afternoon. Normal people worked and studied. Ability users cultivated and completed missions. But what about Cat Eyes? She was sitting cross-legged on the floor of the room. Her hair was messy, and she wore a sleeveless top and briefs. Large swaths of healthy, smooth, light brown skin were exposed. She looked like she had just woken up from a hangover. Her fingers were unconsciously playing with a wine bottle. There were at least a dozen wine bottles around her body. Most of them were empty and overturned. They were a complete mess. Holy crap. If this continued, she would really be crippled. Luo Nan felt that this was no good. He was impulsive for a moment, so he simply said, "How about we have a chat?" Cat Eyes' figure froze the moment the thought came out. Her boring and monotonous actions came to an end. The wine bottle beside her feet rolled far away. Luo Nan only remembered when he saw the statue-like figure. He had not used the Hexayear's channel at all. Instead, He had used his thoughts to directly enter. It was needless to say that this sort of method was one of the greatest taboos between ability users, especially mental ability users. From Cat Eyes' perspective, this was undoubtedly another stab in her bloody wound. Luo Nan was embarrassed. He didn't even think about whether or not he should apologize. But then he saw Cat Eyes reveal a strange smile for some reason. She supported her forehead with her hand, pressing against her hairline. She gathered her fluffy hair a bit, and her appearance was a bit similar to Luo Nan's. It was just that she exuded a serious feeling of decadence and a bit of self-mockery. Okay, but I still have to go teach dancing in a bit. Boss, do you want me to skip work? No need. The class ends at 8 in the evening. No problem. Only after Luo Nan spoke did he remember that he still had a social engagement tonight. He could completely have Cat Eyes come back tomorrow. But the words had already been spoken. Changing them now would be too passive. He might as well just stick together. Then come to Frost River Reality at Cloud City Water Village. I'll be waiting here. I'll be there at 8:30. The conversation ended here. The conversation between the two did not use any electronic devices. It was purely a telepathic exchange. It was smooth and natural, as if they had done this countless times. Cat Eyes looked as if she had just finished a routine phone call. Her face was apathetic. She picked up a full wine bottle beside her and skillfully opened the cap with her fingers. She blew too hard and the yellowish liquid of the wine overflowed from the corner of her lips. It flowed along her chin, neck, collarbone, all the way to her bulging chest. It seeped into a deep cleavage that could make any man stare blankly. Her camisole was drenched. The contours of her body and the corresponding details were all revealed down to the finest hair. That scene. Luo Nan's face turned red. He hurriedly cut off his telepathic thoughts. He unconsciously increased the strength of his fingers that brushed past his hair, scratching his scalp until it hurt. Only now did he truly come back to his senses. He really called that sister over. What was he going to talk about? Was he going to talk about taking her in as a believer? I'm very sorry, but I haven't figured out the unfollow function yet. Why don't you wait a bit? Or should I say, girl, since you're already like this, you should obediently listen to me in the future. Warm my bed, make my quilts, dance for my amusement, and serve me well. I'll guarantee you glory, splendor, wealth, and endless benefits in the future. Damn, he was too impulsive. Luo Nan held his head, dispelling these senseless and foolish thoughts. He faced the roof of the trolley and silently grinned. He didn't know how to evaluate himself. The Hexa ear vibrated while he was in a dilemma. Someone from the society was calling. Could it be that Cat Eyes wanted to go back on her word and not come tonight? Luo Nan, this coward, was already looking forward to it. However, the caller was not Cat Eyes. It was Papercut. Nanster, I'm here. You're ringing and banging here. You haven't finished fiddling with it yet? Ha! Brother Papercut, where are you? Ah, I'll be right there. Only now did Luo Nan remember that he had already made an appointment yesterday. What was it? Luo Nan only remembered that it was a combat machine used by the control class. It was because he had asked Papercut for his so-called big move. He had been misunderstood as needing defensive measures, and Papercut had taken the initiative to deliver it to him. Frankly speaking, Luo Nan wasn't too interested in combat machines in the past. Now that he had the dripping sword, there was no need to even mention it. However, Papercut had come over. Luo Nan took the opportunity to express his gratitude and exchange their experiences with the dripping sword and the activation class. Luo Nan and Papercut chatted for a bit before another call came in. This time it was Shuelei. Nanster, you're done with class. I'll be at gear soon. I'm going to stretch my muscles a bit first. Oh my, thank you brother Papercut. Luo Nan heard that Shuelei wanted to rely on Sanzhou training, so he secretly cried out for Papercut's blessing. He hurriedly cut off Shuelei's words. Brother Papercut just arrived. He brought a combat machine. I heard it's quite interesting. Let's go take a look together and test out its power. Shuelei was a bit stunned by Luo Nan's words. Brother Papercut is teaching you a new lesson? He had taken Luo Nan's words seriously. Luo Nan gave a chuckle and vaguely brushed it off. To put it bluntly, he was really not interested in close combat. On one hand, he felt that he probably wasn't cut out for it. On the other hand, he was far too busy with his homework right now. From the inside to the outside, from the fleshly body to the soul, from the self to the believers, from gear to the clouds. He wished he could split a minute in half. He really didn't have the energy to open another lesson. He could only let Shui lay down for the time being. Luonan arrived before Shui lay. When he arrived at gear, he saw Papercut strolling around the front hall with his hands behind his back, watching how the construction workers operated. He looked like a supervisor at first glance, but that chubby face of his didn't seem dignified at all. "Brother Papercut." Luonan greeted him and went forward. "Let's go to the bar counter in the passageway at the bottom of the lake. The work on the surface isn't done yet, so it's a bit messy. It should be a lot quieter underground." "It's fine. Let's go back and try it out. It's better to be a bit more spacious." Papercut waved his hand. He deliberately revealed his left wrist to attract Luonan's gaze. Luonan saw a black wrist guard wrapped around Papercut's white and plump wrist. It was quite eye-catching. Papercut even intentionally stretched it a few times. It seemed that the material was more flexible and tough, but Luonan couldn't see anything else. "This is the flywheel arm." "Oh, this is." Luonan finally remembered. The combat machine that Papercut said he was going to bring yesterday was called this. It sounded like a metal prosthetic at first glance, but Luonan never expected it to be like a wrist guard. It could be bent and bent as it pleased. Flexible metal material? The metal composition isn't high. After all, the vast majority of metal materials aren't suitable for soul strength interference and control. The ratio needs to be very particular. Papercut took off the flywheel arm and handed it to Luonan. "Try it and you'll know. This thing is quite light and portable." "Oh, I've sent over the instruction manual." "There's even an instruction manual?" "Of course, there's an after-sales service as well." Papercut chuckled as he helped Luonan put it on. He taught Luonan the basics of how to use it. Luonan put this thing on and felt that it was different from a normal sports wrist guard. Aside from the material, it was a bit thicker. The feeling of fixing the wrist was quite obvious. Luckily, it used memory material. Luonan just needed to bend his wrist a few times to be able to wear it comfortably. Whether it was comfortable or not was not a key indicator for a combat machine. Even Papercut said, "It's light and portable. It's easy to use. You don't even need to be taught. You can learn it with a glance. As for speed, lethality, and so on, they're all average. It's quite interesting to treat it as a toy. I just want you to experience the technique of the control class and see if you're interested in delving deeper into it. Do you understand the instruction manual?" Luonan didn't say anything. He turned his wrist and looked at the structure of the flywheel arm when it was bent. He combined it with the instruction manual and observed it carefully. Only then did he discover that when this thing was woven, it was divided into several layers. Each layer was independent, like a deformed fish scale armor. The layers were stacked on top of each other, but they weren't fragmented. There were only a dozen or so pieces. Chapter 391. Luonan nodded after looking inside and outside. He followed the instruction manual and pointed toward the jungle in front of gear. Papercut hurried to stop him, indicating to Luonan to pay attention to the construction workers inside and outside gear. "Let's keep a low profile. Let's walk a bit deeper." Luonan hooked his lips into a cold smile. "It's fine. They're experienced and knowledgeable." Papercut knew what Luonan meant, but he couldn't say anything. He laughed and pulled Luonan deeper into the jungle. They didn't walk 2 steps when Shui Lei turned from the jungle path. He saw the two pulling each other and was a bit stupefied. "Where are you guys going?" "Yo, Leister, you're here." Papercut was quite familiar with Shui Lei. He chuckled and greeted him. "Brother Papercut," Shui Lei responded. He finally found a reason. "You guys came to class." Luonan sweated a bit when he heard this. Luckily, Papercut's answer was very vague. "We came to inspect the goods. We can go take a look together." "What goods?" Shui Lei wasn't completely connected. Luonan's eyes were sharp. He could tell with a glance that this fellow had yet to give up his evil intentions. He wanted to drag Luo Nan to practice Sanzhou with him. Luo Nan even brought a set of Taoist clothes. How could he let Xue Lei have his way? He immediately made up his mind. He would rely on Brother Papercut's protection today. He would cling tightly to this thick thigh and make Xue Lei embarrassed to force him. His thoughts spun, and he used the reason of trying out the control class to drag Xue Lei into the jungle. He turned his head and said, "Brother Papercut, everyone's here today. Let's go get together tonight if we have nothing to do." Papercut went, "Huh?" He was a bit surprised. He knew Luo Nan's temperament. Luo Nan could be considered pure and kind, but how could he understand the ways of the world? He had given Luo Nan lessons for over a dozen days, but he had never received this kind of treatment. Generally, fatties were more self-aware. Papercut asked, "Why did you suddenly think of this? You didn't invite me specifically, right? Who else?" Luo Nan knew that the invitation came too abruptly. He didn't dare give Papercut too much time to think. He chuckled and gave himself more reasons and bargaining chips. Go. We're just playing together. I invited Leister. Yan and Cat Eyes. Huh. Papercut constantly changed his tone and words today. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to express his muddled thoughts. He couldn't help but ask, "Who are you talking about? Cat Eyes?" Cat Eyes. Xue Lei was also stunned. Could it be that the gathering Luo Nan was talking about was different from the one he mentioned at noon? Luo Nan opened his mouth. He suddenly wanted to slap himself. Today, he was a typical case of only caring about his head and not caring about the bottom. He only wanted to slack off, but he ended up piling up more troublesome things. Hey, don't rush to a conclusion. Luo Nan suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He blinked his eyes, and a line of words came out of his mouth. Moreover, he didn't need to fake it. He hemmed and hawed as he said, "Didn't you say that she changed professions?" Papercut thought that he understood when he saw Luo Nan's slightly embarrassed expression. He nodded at Luo Nan and laughed involuntarily. "Don't think that Cat Eyes gave up on all-encompassing sensing because of you? Who told you that?" "This." Luo Nan averted his gaze. "It's me." Xue Lei raised half of his arm and obediently admitted it. The source of his information was the gossip circulating on the psychic wave network. It had a deductive nature to it, so it was hard not to feel a bit awkward right now. Papercut looked at these two 16 or 17-year-old kids. He felt that the matter of education was a long way off. He felt a great sense of responsibility for a moment, and he earnestly and patiently explained, "It's not called changing professions. It's just focusing on choosing a more suitable path of development. In the past, people looked forward to Cat Eyes long-range sensing the most, okay? You don't need to feel embarrassed about this, but don't spread it. After all, this rumor is meant to trample on people. If things go wrong, both sides will be ruined." Luo Nan and Xue Lei obediently lowered their heads and received the lecture. Papercut thought about the meeting at night and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Cat Eyes actually agreed? She doesn't feel embarrassed. Indeed, she wasn't embarrassed. She was dispirited. Luo Nan felt more and more that inviting Papercut to oversee things was a good choice. At the very least, there would be a buffer. They could get through the most awkward period of the early stages. As for how to communicate in depth and eliminate misunderstandings, Luo Nan could only act according to the circumstances. Since Cat Eyes had said this much, Papercut found it hard to refuse. He was worried that these two youngsters weren't good at the art of communication. They might do bad things out of good intentions, and they might really shed all pretenses of cordiality with Cat Eyes. Cat Eyes was quite famous in the society for her eccentric temperament. Since he had decided to participate, Papercut didn't waste his breath. He saved his strength for tonight. He sighed and brought back the main topic. Come. Let's first operate the flywheel arm." Though Luo Nan didn't have much interest in this type of combat machine, he still chose this one when he had to choose between sparring with it and Sanzhou. He immediately roused his spirits and prepared to mobilize his interference power according to the instructions on the manual. Papercut wanted to teach him how to aim first. The safety factor of this toy is quite high. You won't easily injure yourself, and there are no problems with various postures. But you need to know that this isn't an energy wave. It's too stupid to point your palm forward. It includes finger jabbing and arm stretching. All of these are useless moves. Luo Nan was a bit at a loss from Papercut's words. Then what kind of posture should I use? There's a lot. The most effective method is to throw it. It's like throwing a dart, striking out with a fist, chopping with a knife hand, and so on. Anything works. Luo Nan waved his arms stiffly. Like this. Xue Lei curled his lips to the side. Zero foundation. Clearly, Xue Lei already had some judgment regarding the matter of Luo Nan repeatedly avoiding Sanzhou training. Right now, he was jabbing at Luo Nan. Luo Nan pretended not to hear her. He first tried it twice, then he began to mobilize his interference power, pouring it into the wrist guard to activate it. As the divine chakra and body chakra intersected and rotated, the heart lamp of the eye's orifice lit up and illuminated his brain. In the past, this would be the sign of the formation of interference force. But Luo Nan's foundation was far too thick, even if he didn't put much effort into cultivating the internal refinement technique in the past 2 days. He also had the assistance of the Wraith Sign's meteorite descent. Under the urging of many factors, not only was the eye's orifice a small success, but the orifice of the mouth and tongue had also taken shape. It transformed into a spiritual pool of liquid jade, resonating with the heart lantern of the eye's orifice from a distance. In terms of internal training, the mind lamp spirit pool was like the spring sun melting into snow, the cold and warmth stimulating each other. And in terms of the interference of the mental and material planes, after the mind lamp was lit, the spirit pool filled with jade liquid would turn into the highest quality lamp oil, connecting with the mind lamp and helping it burn layer by layer. In this way, it was equivalent to combining 3 apertures into one. The strength of his interference power had increased by more than 3 times. Luo Nan originally wanted to follow the instructions in the manual and increase the control, but now he directly raised it to the max. His arm trembled slightly, and then a long hissing sound rang out. A circular sheet ejected from the middle of the wrist guard. It first spun in midair before suddenly accelerating. It advanced in a straight line through the air with a thud, cutting into the trunk of the large tree in front of him. The entire sheet sank in. Luo Nan noticed that the entire process didn't seem like he was shooting a dart. It was more like he was shooting a missile. The flywheel arm acted as a launching tube. All it did was fling the sheet out. The driving force was what drove the sheet to kill the target. Otherwise, with the sharpness, speed, and trajectory of the sheet, Luo Nan's palm would have been the first to be pierced. The safety settings were very successful, but the power was only average. At the very least, it was a level lower than normal firearms. Of course, it was fatal to normal people, but Luo Nan needed to consider it carefully against ability users. As Luo Nan was thinking, Papercut laughed from the side. This is an emergency shrapnel. It's used to scare people when you meet the enemy in a hurry. You used up all your strength just now, right? Luo Nan still needed to adapt to the changes in interference power after combining 3 orifices into one. He just laughed and tacitly agreed. Papercut continued to teach Luo Nan the trick. Did you notice that the emergency shrapnel just now was shot from the middle layer of many layers of armor? Every single one of them is like this. There is no way that the upper layer will be the first to fire. This is all for the sake of drawing support from the reaction force between them. The friction is sufficient to ignite fire. Feel it. Don't you think this makes sense? Luo Nan still didn't open his mouth. His mind sunk into the inner layer of the flywheel arm. He used his interference power once more to feel an irregular sheet in the middle. It trembled and hummed within the interlayer. It rotated at low speeds under the pressure of the same type of armor. It shifted slightly, constantly accumulating power. Excellent. You're drawing a bow without firing it. Layer upon layer of reinforcement. Nanster, you really do have talent in the control class. Papercut sighed unconsciously as he sighed in admiration. Did he have to watch the rising star of the activation class change professions? Luo Nan followed Papercut's explanation and controlled the increasingly active sheet within the wrist guard. The temperature of the inner layer of the wrist guard was rising, but there was no obvious change in the outer layer's temperature. The shielding effect was top-notch. Xue Lei, who was next to Luo Nan, had keen senses. He sensed a few subtleties and came over with some curiosity. He even reached out to touch it, but Papercut slapped his hand away. What if I can't control it and it explodes? Luo Nan rolled his eyes. I think I can still hold on. Then continue. This toy will certainly become more powerful the longer it accumulates power. This was actually true. Luo Nan could feel that the sheet relied on its overall structure to accumulate power physically. It also relied on special materials to endlessly absorb interference power. Clearly, there was something unique about the single structure. The technical content of the flywheel arm was much higher than it appeared on the surface. Papercut spoke faster, introducing the firing mode to Luo Nan. If you want to attack, the flywheel arm itself has a built-in chip. It can be connected to intelligent equipment to preset a flight path, select a special shape sheet, and calculate obstacles, air resistance, and so on. It's very good for sniping in complex environments. Plus, we all have the Hexa ear. It saves quite a bit of effort. Luo Nan followed Papercut's instructions and made a wireless connection. Sure enough, an exquisite interface popped up on his retina. It displayed the real-time changing data according to the scene before him. Through the Hexa ear, all operations could be realized with telepathic control. Luo Nan randomly chose a target, and the interface used dotted lines to indicate the available routes. At the same time, it indicated the percentage of power needed for the best effect. Was this like playing a video game? Luo Nan didn't have a good or bad impression of this sort of idiotic operation. He was a rookie. The more complete the auxiliary functions, the more advantageous it would be for him. However, a true expert probably wouldn't like this sort of programmed setup. Papercut added before Luo Nan could finish his thoughts. Also, if you feel that you're awesome, you can choose mental control. This is a test of a person's continuous operation. Awesome people can even have 12 sharp blades fly around their body in unison. It's like controlling 12 flying swords. They can fight in close combat or attack from a distance. They can scare people to death even if they can't kill them. This is the proper way to use it. Luo Nan slightly swayed his arm. Since the flywheel arm was used by the control class, he should place more emphasis on microcontrol. Papercut spread his hands. You can say that, but the actual situation is different. You see, in order to guarantee the structural function, every combination of thin slices has a different shape. Their flight trajectories are different as well. There are also all sorts of splicing combinations. A normal person wouldn't be able to hold on if they didn't use smart equipment to calculate. Maybe architects and extraordinaries can do it, but who would count on them when it comes to that? That's true. Luo Nan raised his hand and fired according to smart mode. The irregular slices were dim but sharp. They instantly broke through the forest barrier of foliage, slicing off the thick branches that served as targets. They charged into the air before turning back. They buzzed as they spun in the air like a miniature chainsaw. Branches and leaves were shattered everywhere they went. The momentum was quite astonishing. Luo Nan fired a boomerang. The irregular slices circled back, their speed decreasing layer by layer. They fell to Luo Nan's wrist like a tired bird returning to its nest. Luo Nan continued to pour in his interference power, and the slices pieced back together. Papercut clapped his hands. Okay, you're getting started. It's just that your operation is too rigid. Actually, no matter if it's smart mode or free mode, you can switch between them. You can change directions at will and increase your power. If you're in combat, I suggest you first use smart control. You can design a good route, and you can add mental control at the last moment. It saves you a lot of effort. It's sudden and flexible enough. The effect of catching your opponent off guard is still there. That's true. Luo Nan continued to practice in the forest. He didn't forget to let Xue Lei have a taste in the middle of it. He pacified Xue Lei's emotions and divided his mind, so that Xue Lei wouldn't jump back to the topic of Sanzhou training. Time passed quickly, and the sky was already dark. The three of them had enough fun in the nearby forest, so they prepared to return. Luo Nan's wristband vibrated at this time. It was a call from Tianxi. Her tone was a bit nervous. Junior Nan, I'm really sorry. There are some things I need to take care of in the society. Tianqi is doing experiments. We might have to go a bit later. Got it. Senior Sister Tian. Luo Nan didn't want to give Tianxi any more pressure. He was counting on this senior sister to suppress Mo Pang and the others. Papercut was baffled to the side. Who is it? You're also getting together in a bit? Luo Nan casually said. One of my senior sisters and her little brother. They're coming with us tonight. Outside the circle? Papercut was very surprised. Luo Nan had a guilty conscience from Papercut's reaction. He could only evade the important and dwell on the trivial. It's Tianxi. She's the one who became a hostage at Ocean Sky Cloud City. You've met her before, right? He looked at Papercut's expression and knew that he couldn't hide it any longer. He could only add, there are also 2 relatives of mine. Maybe there are also their friends. It's a gathering, and it's at Frost River Reality. I'll just meet them face to face. I'll tell them about us later. Oh, you. Papercut really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He reached out to point at Luo Nan again, but he was discouraged before he could open his mouth. You still have to learn in the future. It looks like there are quite a few people this time. Have you booked a room yet? A room? Luo Nan entered a stupefied state. Chapter 392. You're inviting a lot of people. You have to go in and out together. Of course, you need a room. And if you feel that the 2 circles aren't suited to be together, you can book 2 rooms. You just need to run around in the middle. Papercut taught Luo Nan step by step. Before he became the elementary instructor, he never thought that he would be responsible for imparting such basic social knowledge. Luo Nan could not help but feel embarrassed. Speaking of which, he really did not care too much about tonight's trip to Frost River Reality. He just thought that he would go to the game hall and bring people in. How could he have known that there would be such details when it came to entertaining people? It made sense when he thought about it. Last time Mo Chio and Tianxi had a get-together, they had booked a private room. I'll book one right away. Luo Nan was flustered for a moment. He hastily contacted Frost River Reality. He was lucky. Originally, he would not have had the slightest chance with the explosive business there. However, someone just happened to cancel their subscription. He was also a person who had personally experienced the events of Frost River Reality. He actually had a bit of compensatory privileges, allowing him to snatch a medium-sized room. However, it was impossible to realize his idea of booking 2 rooms. So be it. Fat people don't look old. With my looks, it should be enough for me to pretend to be young. Papercut consoled himself with a few words before sighing. Let's go. We're going to wait now. I'll teach you another trick. Since you're the one treating, arriving earlier than the guests is the most basic courtesy. The brand new flagship store of Frost River Reality maintained its high-end image. The venue was set up in Aurora Cloud City. This was the 6th stage of the 6 circular staircase buildings of Cloud City Water Village. It was also the tallest building aside from the main building. Monday was not the busiest time of the day. Luo Nan and his group did not arrive too late. At the very least, they arrived before the evening rush hour created by the office workers. However, Frost River Reality, which had just opened for business, still attracted a large number of players. The tide of students from the surrounding large living areas became the main consumers of this time. The theme of this week's event at Frost River Reality's flagship store was the Wasteland. With the support of reality technology that could pass for reality, the surging stream of people walked from the resplendent modern metropolis into the declining small town. Unexpectedly, there was no sense of incongruity. Frost River Reality, which was decorated with reality technology, was like a starving beast. It swallowed the stream of people in large mouthfuls, seemingly never spitting them out. This business is really explosive. Crag Bust clicked his tongue in wonder. Luo Nan and the others had yet to enter. They sat at the Frozen Star ice cream shop that was standard in every Frost River Reality. They ordered 3 drinks and waited for Mo Pang, Mo Han, and the others to come over. The frozen planet also coordinated with the wasteland theme of Frost River Reality by covering the entirety of reality. All of the dining cups were replaced with worn-out wooden and iron products. The tables, chairs, and counters were also changed accordingly. Sitting here, if one didn't care about their clothing, would be like entering a vagrant tavern in the wilderness. Oh, if one ordered an iced drink that cost more than 100 renminbi, they would get a vagrant cloak for free. There's only one word: burn. Burn money. Papercut took a sip of his drink and evaluated. The event planner should have been to the wilderness before. The background is pretty good, but it's limited to this ice cream shop. What the hell is that small town? Anyone who dares to build something like that in the wilderness is doomed to be flattened by mutants. As they chatted, Papercut, who was such an honest person, couldn't help but show off a few words, but that was all. They soon gathered together and chatted enthusiastically about the flywheel arm. Papercut was still teaching Luo Nan a few things to take note of. This toy's components are exquisite and complex. It's definitely not the durable type. Think about that emergency shrapnel. It must have taken quite a bit of effort to dig it out from the tree trunk, right? After a mid to high intensity battle, the recovery ratio of components isn't high. As a conventional weapon, the logistical pressure isn't small. Luo Nan wasn't prepared to use the flywheel arm as a conventional weapon. He just wanted to use it to practice his control of interference power after combining 3 orifices into one. It was quite suitable to add a way to adapt. But even so, logistics was a more realistic problem. Right, Luo Nan vaguely remembered Papercut saying that there was an after-sales service. Papercut laughed heartily when Luo Nan asked about this. I was waiting for you to ask this question. Of course there's an after-sales service. You know him, old Zhai. Luo Nan was shocked. This is worker Zhai's work? Papercut shook his head. He's not the main creator, but he's one of the auxiliary designers. In the beginning, he was also responsible for the OEM manufacturing of some of the components. He looked all around and lowered his voice. Actually, the flywheel arm was a cooperative project between the society and the government. Its main purpose was to research the ratio and structural design of easily interfering substances. Unfortunately, it was abandoned halfway. Most of the research was lost. The flywheel arm was the only concrete result, but it was lacking in stamina. It was impossible to conduct follow-up research. You guys know that old Zhai has always been very passionate about these things. Plus, this was the first time he was deeply involved in the research of the society. He couldn't bear to part with it. He took advantage of the fact that the project was off the drawing board to buy the property rights to this toy and change it to handmade. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it. Right now, he's only maintaining the after-sales service. He still has to spend quite a bit of money on it. Luo Nan shook his head. It's too hard for worker Zhai to do it by himself. Papercut shrugged. So I'm doing some sort of sales promotion for him. The product is free, but the after-sales service isn't good. That's for sure, Luo Nan answered without hesitation. Papercut sighed ruefully. Old Zhai is certainly at the expert level when it comes to mechanical design, but his ability talent is mediocre. He doesn't have the support of hard strength. It's hard to be optimistic about him forging a successful ability user weapon. His mood has dropped over the past 2 years. But I don't know what happened when you went last time, but you stimulated him a bit. He's been very excited these past few days. Being excited was good. Luo Nan didn't forget that the dynamo core he took from Gym Master Xiao was still in worker Zhai's hands. It was undergoing in-depth research. It would be best if there was progress. Xuelei had some understanding of worker Zhai, but it wasn't as deep as Luo Nan's. Xuelei had an impression of worker Zhai, so he asked Luo Nan in a low voice, is worker Zhai lacking in soul strength? Luo Nan laughed when he heard this. This was typical layman's words. I'm evaluating your strength. I'll say how many kilograms of your fist force is. So, how much strength do you have? Do you recognize that? Xuelei immediately understood. I understand. Soul strength must be measured from all aspects. The society had the 4 dimensions measurement. It included the 4 basic measurement standards of depth, intensity, sensitivity, and affinity. However, it was far from accurate quantification. Therefore, it was hard for Luo Nan to say what the key factor restricting worker Zhai's growth in strength was. After all, soul strength was far too subtle and complex. Papercut swallowed the drink in his cup along with the ice cubes. Talent, talent, talent. Important words can be repeated 300 times. In our domain, if you start off as a blank slate, you won't be able to reach that standard. You won't be able to reach it in your entire life. Old Zhai has some skill, but he's just a bit off. He can't go up no matter what. And as long as he can't go up, many methods of training and growth are meaningless. Luo Nan and Xuelei glanced at each other. Actually, they were a bit disapproving of Papercut's words. Xuelei felt that his own ability was partly due to the guidance of a famous teacher, and partly due to his own solid training. Talent wasn't a decisive factor. Luo Nan thought of his grandfather's formatting theory. If he had talent, he would have followed his grandfather's theory. He would have used medicine to pile up and mold it step by step. Papercut could guess what the two youths were thinking, but he didn't care. Of the 600,000 ability users in the world, almost 90% lacked the corresponding aptitude and could not be truly awakened. They could only waste their time in a state that was neither good nor bad. It was one of the most painful experiences in the world to give light, but to wipe out hope. Without long-term extensive contact, the two little ones would not be able to truly understand that group. All of this required experience. When their eyes met, the enthusiastic young man and the passive uncle understood each other tacitly. Their magnetic field sizzled. Now that they had the time to chat, Xuelei couldn't help but ask, how is it possible that there are no ways to train and gain strength? The dojo master had once said that the three treasures of essence, breath, and spirit were shared by everyone. When your spirit is full, your chi will be full, and when your chi is full, your spirit will be full. This is a chain that runs through everything. If you don't have enough soul strength, strengthening your body is also a way. Papercut laughed. How is a fleshly body enhancement different from a mental enhancement? The former had a foothold in the material world. As long as one cultivated it properly, they could build up layer by layer and temper themselves inside and out. Even a shabby brothel could one day transform into a royal palace. But the mental plane is illusory, and the activation of abilities usually comes out of nowhere. It doesn't have muscles, and it can't be increased with large amounts of exercise. The main reason lies in the fact that its nature is far too different from the material world. It's impossible to find a point of connection. Even if you find it, there will be a difference between reality and illusion. It's like a chicken talking to a duck. Luo Nan had a pensive look on his face. So you're saying that interference power is very important? Papercut tapped his empty cup. Yes, interference power is extremely important. President Ouyang once said that the current theory of supernatural powers is incomplete. Only by realizing the function of interference can soul strength be incorporated into the experience system that people can understand. Only then can the two most crucial tasks of observation and cognition be realized. Only then can one borrow the foundation of the material world to realize effective growth. The stronger the interference power, the faster the growth. Papercut immediately retreated in defeat when he saw Luo Nan's pure eyes. I know that you're an exception. You're the only one whose interference power is trash in the early stages, but your soul strength can still soar. Formatting theory is truly extraordinary. Luo Nan loved to hear these kinds of words. He immediately smiled until his eyes squinted. However, he didn't believe that this point could reflect the particularity of formatting theory. No. My self-format is also constructed on top of the material world. It is constructed on the special structure of the nervous system. It's not that it doesn't have interference power. It's just that it is very likely to form a one-way channel. I can only use matter to interfere with the mind. The reverse won't work. This will drive the rapid growth of soul strength, but it will also cause a serious imbalance between body and soul. Papercut blinked. He found it strange that Luo Nan actually understood what Luo Nan was saying. What you say is quite reasonable. If I can study and analyze it in earnest. Luo Nan rolled his eyes. Don't dissect it. I don't want to be a guinea pig. Having said this, he thought of octopus. He had already made some progress with the help of his grandfather's notes and formulas. He didn't know whether or not he could produce some dazzling results. Perhaps formatting theory really did have flaws, but Luo Nan's own practice proved that these flaws could be overcome. He had already borrowed Gym Master Xiao's guidance and coupling theory to turn a one-way channel into a two-way channel. This sort of experience could be completely integrated into formatting theory, making it more persuasive. It could become a hot topic in the inner world and even the entire world. Right now, the momentum was good. Luo Nan laughed unconsciously. Hey, what are you thinking about? Xuelei saw Luo Nan laugh foolishly for some inexplicable reason after calling Luo Nan a guinea pig. Xuelei was a bit worried that something would go wrong with Luo Nan's mental circuit. Only now did Luo Nan realize that he had lost control of himself. He hurriedly waved his hand. It's nothing. I just feel that President Ouyang's description is precise. Last time at Frost River Reality. I'm talking about the one at the center of the city. Fairchild said something similar, like, observation is order, and the like, but he didn't mention the experience system. President Ouyang's premise is very good. From Luo Nan's understanding, the so-called experience system should be a set of observations and cognitive results that could be deduced and generated through practice and verification. Ability users, who found it hard to become awakened, lived their entire lives in the material world. Though they possessed a bit of talent for supernatural powers, it was insufficient to correspond with their daily life experiences. Instead, it was easy for them to get lost in the illusory mental plane. They were unable to distinguish between what was extraordinary and what was fabricated. Only by realizing interference and entering the realm of normal human experience could one's soul strength become a real existence. Only then would one be able to abandon the obstacles of one's chaotic consciousness and transform the potential one possessed bit by bit into supernatural powers. Therefore, how important was it to have a stable and long-lasting interference mode? Ha! A flash of inspiration flashed through Luo Nan's mind, and an idea suddenly popped out. After a bit of deduction, he felt that it was a bit complicated, so he simply did it. With a thought, a precise structure was engraved at the interface between the mental plane and the material plane. The condensation ring. The ice cream shop was full of water vapor. In the blink of an eye, beads of water condensed out of thin air and floated above the table between the three people. Whether it was Xue Lei or Papercut, they were both very keen characters. They immediately sensed it, and their gazes locked onto it. Papercut was particularly shocked. The dripping sword? My goodness, you're this familiar with it? Luo Nan waved his hand. Let's not talk about the dripping sword for now. Let's just talk about the condensation ring. Actually, I feel that this might be more suitable for Worker Zhai. Making this thing doesn't require too much interference power, and Worker Zhai also has an amplification device. Even if he loses some precision, Worker Zhai should be able to make up for it with his level. Once he succeeds, he will have a fulcrum that will be constantly. Luo Nan spoke in a single breath according to his own train of thought. Then he saw Papercut's blank expression that said, "Here you go again." Clearly, Luo Nan's previous words were wasted. Luo Nan also felt that he didn't speak clearly, so he prepared to add, "What I mean is..." "Nanster, where are you?" "We're here." Mo Peng's communication cut in perfectly. Before Luo Nan's voice could fall, he saw Mo Peng take the lead at the entrance of the ice cream shop, leading a majestic group inside. Luo Nan instinctively counted 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. 9 people. The ice cream shop was densely packed with people, and it had undergone materialization. It was built to look like a dark and gloomy tavern. With so many people entering in one breath, the space suddenly became oppressive. Chapter 393. Let alone Luo Nan, even Papercut, who considered himself an etiquette teacher and a rescue expert, felt a bit dizzy when he saw the group of kids charge in. Why are there so many people? He began to consider whether or not he should flee at the last minute. However, his feet had just moved when Xue Lei grabbed him. "Brother Papercut, you must go. Look at Nanster's face." That was why Mr. Macho hated muscular dogs the most. Papercut struggled to no avail and could only accept his fate. He shook his head and said, "Then entertain them first. Don't take it too seriously. Hey, it's time to get up and greet them." Actually, Luo Nan knew to stand up and wave to Mo Peng and the others without needing him to say anything. A group of people moved over noisily. The leader, Mo Peng, was bewildered with excitement. "Don't delay any longer. Let's set off immediately. Let's go to Frost River Reality. Wasteland Winter." Luo Nan was still mulling over how to greet people, so he shut his mouth. However, Mo Peng wouldn't let him off that easily. He draped an arm over Luo Nan's shoulder. Those who haven't seen him before should recognize him. "This is my little brother, Luo Nan." He was a traitor of 6 high school who had abandoned the light for the dark side and ran towards Acumen College. Today is his journey to atone for his sins. He will bear all the expenses. This saved him the trouble of introducing himself. Luo Nan took a deep breath. He was faced with nearly 10 pairs of eyes staring at him. He wasn't nervous at all, but he really didn't know how to take care of everything. He hadn't been able to clearly see everyone's faces up until now. He only saw Mo Han behind Mo Peng, And then, his train of thought went astray. Above the table, the condensation ring was still in effect. No one noticed the floating water droplets, but it wasn't good to leave them there for too long. Luo Nan was worried that he would give himself away, so he used his interference power to shatter the water bead and the condensation ring. However, the inspiration that had just emerged faded away. Seeing that Luo Nan's reaction was half a beat too slow, Mo Han gave Mo Peng a sneak peek. She blamed Mo Peng for being too unreliable with his words. Papercut was unwilling to pass on this responsibility. He came out to assist. We have a lot of people. Let's not block the road here. Let's go inside first, and then we can slowly talk. Luo Nan finally revealed a smile. Right. Let's go to the room. The more people there were, the livelier it was. There were many details, and no one cared about a few flaws. The group of pawns moved on to Frost River reality. The AR guide who welcomed them was a boorish uncle in a tavern. Come on, explorers. Change your equipment before the adventure. Do you have a fixed equipment room? Luo Nan called out to his good luck. He was also grateful for Papercut's reminder. He turned his gaze and locked gazes with Papercut. Aside from him, everyone else seemed to be in Mo Han's circle. Luo Nan felt that this was quite interesting. This gathering was proposed by Mo Peng. What was going on with this scene? He turned his head and asked, Were you suppressed today? There's no one here for you. We agreed on a get-together. How can you share your resources with others? Mo Peng boasted to the skies, but his face fell in the blink of an eye. Fine. Little Pomegranate's mouth is too fast. I'm afraid that I'll go crazy and the entire Mo family will know by the next day. But I never imagined that you would actually dare to bring out the tall and fat combo to deal with me. He was gnashing his teeth a bit as he spoke to this point. Then he changed the topic and laughed mischievously. But tonight, I'll be keeping an eye on little Pomegranate. Let's see what this girl wants to do. Mo Peng's meaning was very clear. Luo Nan was a bit shocked. She has a master? Right now there was only one man and one woman left in Mo Peng's party of 9 that Luo Nan did not recognize. The others either knew each other thoroughly or were paired up. Then there was only Yu Zheng. He's Yu Qin's older brother. He's 2 years older than us. I heard that he seems to be interested in Pomegranate, but Pomegranate's intentions are still unclear. Luo Nan's gaze shifted over. He saw that Yu Zheng was of medium build. His genes were probably powerful. He and his sister, Yu Qin, were one handsome and one beautiful. They were both very pleasing to the eye, and they appeared more mature than their age. It was hard for Luo Nan to imagine the scene of Yu Zheng pairing up with the lively and straightforward Mo Han. Luo Nan put this matter aside for the time being and asked Mo Peng, There's still one more. She's prepared for you. Luo Nan burst into sweat. Prepared for me what? The remaining single girl. She's gentle and quiet. She's a good person, right? Her name is Chiu Pei Pei. She's a good match for you. The remaining girl was just as Mo Peng said. She was gentle and delicate. She looked very pleasing to the eye. But wasn't this a bad match? Mo Peng curled his lips and glared at Mo Han. Mo Han didn't know what the two brothers were talking about, but she didn't hesitate to give them the middle finger. You should go ask Mo Han. I was quite interested at first, but Sister Pomegranate said something like, Don't have any crooked thoughts. It's not your turn. Luo Biao and I are the same kind of trash. He's even worse than me. Then isn't it clear who she's prepared for? Luo Nan was speechless. He felt more and more that he couldn't keep up with Mo Peng and Mo Han's train of thought. He could only retreat in defeat. Another call came through. It was from Tianxi. Senior, you guys came? Sorry, Tianqi and I just arrived. You're not late. We just came in as well. Senior, you guys just need to go to room 156. Mo Peng's ears perked up when he heard the word, senior. He even moved closer. Luo Nan pushed his head away, but Mo Peng had a face full of saliva. He stuck close to Luo Nan. Senior? Nanster, I knew you wouldn't be so extreme. How could you just use the tall and fat combination to fool me? So you had a backup plan. Then do you know that the tall and fat combination has the most sensitive ears in the entire room? Luo Nan shot a glance in the direction of Shui Lei and Papercut. Papercut pinched his rather large stomach. He had a conflicted expression. Feng Sure smiled, but Luo Nan inexplicably felt that something was wrong. His gaze spun around the room, but he didn't know where the problem lay. Mo Ping asked him, "How many more people are coming? Are they all little sisters? Big sister? You too?" Oh no. Luo Nan finally knew where the problem lay. The medium-sized rooms of Frost River Reality were actually the standard of changing rooms. Every person was allocated a suitcase that was arranged in a ring. Aside from storing clothes, the most important thing was to use the system to switch to the most suitable equipment for Frost River Reality based on each person's scan. Everyone matched up with each other. However, the medium-sized rooms were made for 12 people. It just so happened that Tianxi and Luo Nan didn't have a corresponding suitcase when they arrived. This was Luo Nan's mistake. He didn't pay attention to the configuration of the medium-sized room at all. There was a knock on the door just as he was thinking about how to remedy the situation. Someone in the room thought that it was a waiter and called out, "Come in." The door opened, and the room went silent for a moment. Tianxi smiled as she walked into the room. She was a bit shocked to see so many people in the room, but there were even more people who were rendered speechless by her arrival. Tianxi was dressed very simply today. She took off her coarse coat and hung it in the crook of her arm. She wore a loose white turtleneck sweater paired with black trousers. She also wore heels of the same color. Her hair was tied into a fluffy ponytail, and a lock of hair slanted across her forehead. She wore light makeup, a classic combination of black and white. She had a bit of experience, but she wasn't deeply immersed in the secular world. Tianxi gave the little sisters in the room an excellent early demonstration of what a beautiful woman should look like in the prime of her youth. Tianxi accurately found Luo Nan's position among the group of people. She sent him a gentle smile, and then she spoke in a perfectly surprised tone. "I didn't expect there to be so many people. I'm late. Everyone, please don't take offense." She lowered her posture, and her smile was the most amiable. Even though she spoke empty polite words, it gave people a great impression of her. Luo Nan, Shui Lei, and Papercut could be considered acquaintances, but the eyes of the other men in the room lit up. They completely ignored Tianqi, who followed behind them. Mo Peng exclaimed in surprise the moment Tianxi entered the room. "Wow, Nanster, you really put in the capital. But why do I feel that she looks familiar? Oh, that Tian. Senior sister Tianxi. Last time we were at Frost River Reality." Mo Peng was too embarrassed to finish speaking, but Luo Nan had already nodded lightly. Mo Peng's mouth gaped open, and Mo Han came over from the other side. "Nanster, you invited her? I don't think she and brother Xiaofan got together. How are you going to greet her later?" There were too many whispers. Luo Nan was afraid that he would leave people hanging, so he raised his voice. "Yes, senior sister Tian has taken good care of me at school. I took advantage of this opportunity to invite her out to play. Tianqi also went last time. Everyone should be familiar with her." Tianxi took advantage of Luo Nan's introduction to greet her little brother once more. "This is our first time meeting. Please take care of me." Her gaze flew to Luo Nan after she spoke. "I think I know why brother Xiaofan didn't get together." Mo Peng didn't keep his mouth shut, so Luo Nan gave him a shove. Tianxi walked over to Luo Nan at this time. Tianqi followed behind her with a strange expression on his face. The atmosphere in the room could not be hidden from others. At this moment, the gap between them could be seen. Tianqi's thoughts were all on his face, like a bulldog's. On the other hand, when Tianxi was invited, she was inevitably embarrassed, but when it came to it, she hid all her negative emotions very well, making people feel comfortable. She apologized to Luo Nan once more. "I'm sorry. I can't get away from the society for a while." No. Didn't I tell you? We just changed our equipment." Luo Nan responded without thinking, but he thought of the trouble he just discovered. He didn't know what to say next. Now he was the one in an awkward situation. However, Luo Nan was open-minded. He had to admit to his mistakes. There was nothing to hide. He scratched his head. "Senior sister Tian, you and senior Tianqi wait a moment." I didn't count the number of people when I booked the room. To the side, Papercut was simply drunk. It was forgivable to book the room wrongly, and it wasn't a problem to admit to one's mistake. But this fucking blunt and straightforward method. Was it for the sake of showing everyone the history of this otaku cancer? He first slapped the call service button on the wall. His slightly plump body nimbly rushed forward and poked Luo Nan, interrupting him. Nanster me Shuelei and that. Mo Peng, you guys share a suitcase. Let two of them go first. I've already called for a human service. We can scan the equipment directly. It'll be very fast. Tianxi had seen Papercut at Ocean Sky Cloud City before. His build was easy to recognize. She knew that this was Luo Nan's friend. It was very likely that he was someone with extraordinary powers. Naturally, she wouldn't slight him. She immediately pursed her lips into a smile. This kind of situation happens often. There's no need to go through the trouble. Papercut bowed. It's only natural to serve a beauty. As he spoke, he turned to glare at Luo Nan. His meaning was, kid, learn. It was just as Papercut said. There would always be people willing to serve a beauty. Adding Tianqi to the mix wasn't a big deal. Mo Peng greeted Tianqi in a very familiar manner. Tianqi was very cooperative. There's no need to go through the trouble. Big Peng and I can share a suitcase. The two of them were quite familiar with each other. It turned out that the seventh son of the Mo family, Mo Chang, and Tianqi got along quite well in the field of esports. They had even met Mo Peng a few times. Everyone was familiar with each other, but the more they knew this, the more they didn't understand how Tianxi and Luo Nan, who had never interacted with each other before, could be this familiar with each other. Tianxi and Luo Nan had come over despite the awkwardness. This subtle layer of relationship was like a little bug, drilling into the tips of their hearts and making them itch. Luo Nan was just about to introduce Tianxi and her brother to the others. It seemed that Papercut and Shuelei hadn't really mentioned them before. The scene was too chaotic. Suddenly, someone spoke up and circled back to the previous topic. Let's switch rooms. Once these words were spoken, most people turned their gazes in a daze. They found the source of the voice. Yu Zheng. This person had a calm expression as he faced the focused gazes. I bumped into a fellow on the road just now. He's in the middle level here. He specifically told me that if I want to be a bit more spacious, I can upgrade the cabin. Right now, the luxury room in area A just so happens to be empty. He smiled brilliantly as he spoke. His gaze streaked past Luo Nan and stopped on Tianxi's face. I feel that it's better to meet new friends in an open and bright environment. Everyone will have more fun. It was also at this time that Luo Nan heard Mo Peng squeeze out a sound from his throat. Holy crap! I don't know how many book friends have followed me here from the Netherworld Immortal Way. This book can be considered my famous work. 10 years after the book was published, I finally have the opportunity to publish a simplified version. Right now, the first volume of this book has already begun a pre-sale event at Tmall's Dazhou Book Specialty Store. The first 200 buyers will receive a postcard with my personal signature. If there are book friends who don't mind my crappy handwriting, you can actively participate. Actually, I'm a bit worried that I won't be able to deliver 200 autographed cards. Chapter 394. The atmosphere in the room became very strange. Yu Zheng's smiling face was very vague. The meaning behind his words was also very vague. But the direction of his gaze was very clear. It was enough for most people to fill in the gaps in their minds. Was he pretending to be unintentional to step on the faces of Luo Nan and the others? Or was he stepping on the faces of Luo Nan and the others to show off to Tianxi? The meaning seemed to be the same. In short, he was stepping on their faces. Ruan Zihui shot a glance at Mo Han and saw her best friend frown. She giggled and said, "What's the point of changing? We're going to area A, B, and C. The size of the room is of no use." Wow, you're using profanity. Tong Hui made a fuss over nothing. You've already dirted me. Ruan Zihui's sudden outburst shocked everyone present. Unfortunately, she wasn't a veteran. She couldn't help but laugh as soon as she finished speaking. She covered her face and squatted down. But in this way it would prove her words true. Even Tong Hui was dumbfounded. The focus of the entire room had been led astray by her. Emo Han looked at her in shock. It was just a standpoint. Was there a need to go all out? In any case, Ruan Zihui had used Grey's sacrifice to reverse the atmosphere here. Though she wasn't openly teasing or making fun of them, the men and women were stifling their laughter. They threw the matter of upgrading to the back of their minds. Yu Zheng gaped, but he was unable to say the words he wanted to say. He knew very well that forcefully reversing the atmosphere was too difficult. If he didn't do it right, it would be very hurtful. In the end, he wanted to make a good impression. He didn't want to run into a wall. That's right. Yu Zheng was certain that Tianxi was his favorite kind of prey the moment she came in. She had a sense of propriety. She knew when to advance and when to retreat. She had a graceful bearing. She wasn't very old either. She had just begun to mature. This was the kind he was most obsessed with in recent years. In comparison, though Emo Han was young and beautiful, she had a prickly temperament. If things went wrong, she would torment someone to death. Yu Zheng's gaze lingered on Tianxi. The more he looked, the more he felt that she was to his liking. He had yet to figure out why such an outstanding beauty would be friends with a typical otaku brat like Luo Nan. However, he dared to bet with his eyes that the two weren't that close. Luo Nan's polite behavior spoke volumes. Oh, the first part was a little too hasty. After all, this was the social circle of Emo Han and Emo Peng. If he was too forceful, it might produce the opposite of the desired result. However, once they entered the amusement park, that might not be the case. A smile reappeared on Yu Zheng's face. He shrugged and acted as if nothing had happened. He no longer mentioned the matter of upgrading the cabin. He slowly took off his jacket and prepared to change his equipment. Just then, colorful lights flashed in the private room, followed by impassioned music and a voice in the background. Explorers, I admire your courage. Now, let's move on to more dangerous areas. What happened? The equipment is locked. This is an upgrade. Yu Zheng, what the hell are you doing? Ruan Zihui shouted again. Everyone's gazes turned towards Yu Zheng. Most of their gazes were filled with rebuke. No matter what you want to do, this attitude of acting first and reporting later is too unsightly. However, Yu Zheng also displayed an innocent appearance. Half of his jacket had been taken off, and there was still a sleeve hanging on his upper arm. He froze just like that, facing over a dozen gazes with a blank expression. A knock came from the door during this awkward and tense moment. Then the outer door was pushed open, and a young man wearing a perfectly straight suit walked in with a smile. Zengster, it's just an upgrade. What are you hesitating for? At most, it'll be on my tab. I'll act first and report later. Oh wow, you really have quite a few new friends. How wonderful! Yu Zheng's entire face lit up. He never expected that this fellow would play such a trick. Perhaps it was the Shanghai style, or perhaps it was some other reason. But no matter what, Yu Zheng had extricated himself from a passive situation. This was truly a battle where he could raise his eyebrows in elation and turn things around. He tore off the jacket hanging on his arm and took a deep breath. Only then did he walk over with a smile. Brother Fan, you're too fast. The young man surnamed Fan came in. It was clear at a glance that he was an exquisite character polished in society. He hammered Yu Zheng's chest, displaying an intimate attitude. Then he turned towards the room, his smile even wider. My surname is Fan, Fan Chu. I'm in charge of this branch, so I might be 2 years older. This is the first time I'm meeting most of you younger brothers and sisters, but you're all Zengster's classmates, and Zengster is my younger brother's childhood friend. We're all just strangers. Fan Chu spoke quickly, but each word was clear. There are many guests today. If there's any place I've neglected, please don't take offense. I've added a few fruit plates and refreshments to the luxurious compartment as an apology to my younger brothers and sisters. In the future, when you come here, you can look for me directly for matters like reserving a private room. If you can't find one, just mention my name and I'll do my best to arrange it properly. Yu Zheng's heart warmed up when he heard him say this. In the past, he had somewhat looked down on this brother Fan who had a strong social air, but now his opinion had changed greatly. Brother Fan was indeed a busy man. He picked up the phone in the time it took to say a few words. He smiled and waved to everyone before leaving with quick steps. Though he had come and gone in a hurry, Yu Zhang had already reshuffled the rotten cards in his hand with this trip. He had used a king bomb and 4 twos to play the bottom line. It would be hard for him to lose again. The more confident he was, the more natural Yu Zhang's attitude became. He no longer needed to flaunt anything. He just needed to spread his hands and face everyone, assuming the most magnanimous posture. Fine. I didn't know he would play this hand either. I'm afraid the data has all been transferred. Let's go. It's only a few steps away. Having said this, he faced Luo Nan with a smile. Junior Nan, this matter was an accident. It's been quite a toss. Why don't we make a deal and give me a chance? I'll treat you tonight. Consider it an apology to everyone, and also to express my stance to the seniors and juniors of Acumen College. Yu Zheng's words were spoken beautifully, especially after he had been wronged. The more he lowered his stance, the more it made the sharp-tongued Wan Wenhui and the others unable to open their mouths. Yu Zhang looked around him after he finished speaking. He made some calculations in his mind. Right now, he should have more or less snatched away Luo Nan's limelight as the host. He could continue to plow deeply and meticulously. Look, senior sister Tian. Wasn't she looking over with great astonishment? Tianxi was truly astonished. She could guess Yu Zheng's thoughts, but she was astonished at how reckless this person was. Though she still didn't truly understand Luo Nan's extraordinary ability, it didn't hinder her from having a basic understanding. If Luo Nan wanted someone like Yu Zheng to die silently, it would only take a mere thought for Yu Zheng to die. Fear couldn't be avoided from Tianxi's heart when her thoughts reached this point. This fear came from her reverence towards a power that escaped the control of society's laws and principles. Luo Nan's current wooden performance was like a mask in her eyes. Perhaps the mask would be torn off in the next moment, revealing the face of the Grim Reaper. She turned to look at Yu Zheng, and he just so happened to meet her gaze. He bowed from a distance with a smile. Yu Zheng thought that he was free and unrestrained, but in Tianxi's eyes, he was no different from a rotting corpse. She shivered and subconsciously shifted a bit in Luo Nan's direction. Then, under everyone's gazes, she reached out to press down on Luo Nan's upper arm. She hesitated for a bit, then slid a bit to the side to gently grasp his arm. Junior! At this moment, the eyes of the people in the room bulged. Chaotic thoughts ran through their minds. Of course, Yu Zheng's expression instantly darkened. Luo Nan was very baffled. He turned to look at Tianxi, feeling a bit uncomfortable with her suddenly closing the distance between them. He opened his mouth to ask why. At this time, Papercut suddenly jumped out from the side and laughed. Don't be confused. Don't be unreasonable. The data has already been transferred over. It's impossible to go back. Let's go experience the luxury room. I've never been there in my life. He extended his hand to drive them away. Go, go, go. All of you go. Don't forget your clothes, your personal belongings. Hey, Nanster. Finish talking to Tianxi. Hurry up and go over. Perhaps there were many people in the room who wanted to see what would happen next, but Papercut only needed to use a little trick to make this group of powerless boys and girls, including Yu Zheng, whose heart and face were very stiff, involuntarily lift their feet and leave. The room became quiet in a few breaths of time. Senior, what's the matter? Luo Nan's reaction was a bit slow, but he wasn't an idiot. Even though he hadn't completely understood the ways of the world, from his perspective, Tianxi's heartbeat was chaotic right now. Fear was growing, and the hand holding his arm was very stiff. It seemed as if she had suffered a fright, and her mind was very tangled. The reason for this seemed to be because of him? Luo Nan was a lot more open-minded when dealing with someone like Tianxi, who only knew a little. He gradually adapted to the new distance between him and Tianxi. He laughed. What are you afraid of? I am just worried that you'll get angry. Tianxi's voice was a bit hoarse. She had some problems controlling her breath. In the end, she was still nervous. Me? Luo Nan was baffled. I'm a bit surprised as well. Papercut stood at the door and suddenly spoke, startling Tianxi yet again. But when she saw this chubby youth give a simple and honest laugh, the smile lines on his chubby face appearing rather likable, her heart actually calmed down quite a bit. Shui Lei popped his head out from outside the door. He curled his lips. That you fellow deserves a beating. He's always stepping on people. He's crazy. Papercut chuckled. Nanster usually has a good temper. I know that, but I never expected you to be this calm and collected when you're in trouble. You're not simple. Ha! Luo Nan was still a bit uncertain. Are you talking about me? Who else could it be besides you? That bro stepped on your face today, and he didn't let it go. I'm really worried that some string in your brain has snapped, and you'll just clean him up like a tank. Motherf ** cur. Speaking of which, do you know how hard it was to clean up the scene back then? That bro's entire body went limp. With just a bit of force, his skin and flesh would fall off. It was like he fell into a pressure cooker. Luo Nan had an innocent expression. He had been busy to death recently. How could he have the leisure to think about the matter of a dead person? Tianxi finally reacted at this time. Luo Nan didn't seem to have any killing intent. She carefully confirmed. You really aren't angry? Luo Nan was depressed, and he felt a bit wronged. Did you guys really have to go so far as to kill him just because he said, BB? What he did was all for naught, wasn't it? From start to finish, he didn't move a single person, including his sister. And then I have to get angry? Brother Papercut, the few lives I've taken are all because they wanted to kill me first, and then they destroyed my mother's work. This doesn't count as indiscriminate killing, right? Of course. Of course it doesn't count. Nanster, you're very magnanimous. Papercut gave a thumbs up. Tianxi felt it was quite odd when she heard this from the side. The words a few lives were seriously contrary to normal social logic. Yet Luo Nan and Papercut spoke of it so casually and naturally. Shui Lei's expression didn't change at all. In the end, they were different from normal people. Tianxi's heartbeat was hard to calm down. She had no choice but to take deep breaths to adjust. Luo Nan could feel it clearly, but he was a bit uncertain when he saw the situation. He turned his head and asked her, was there a problem with what I did just now? How was Tianxi supposed to respond? She had a clever and varied eloquence, but she was completely unable to display it at this moment. She really admired herself. Why did she think of having a private conversation with Luo Nan just now? It was Papercut who helped her out of this predicament. Nobody had that intention. Didn't they just praise you? I just want to know. Are you sure that kid you didn't move a single person? His tricks are pretty good, especially when that kid fan came over. I don't know what this group of boys and girls are thinking. Tianxi is knowledgeable, but others may not. Luo Nan especially liked this topic. He immediately laughed and pointed at his own head. Sense it. Papercut was just teasing him. He never thought that there would really be an answer. He was stunned for a time. You can even sense this? Of course. It's very clear. It had to be said that Luo Nan didn't understand some of the ways of the world, but there were few in the entire Xia city who dared to say that they could beat him when it came to sensing people's energies, let alone in this room. It was just as he said. Yu Zhang was like a banshee that kept hitting a tree in this matter. The living starry sky displayed that this bro's gravity didn't form any effective fluctuations as a dim star. It had practically no real effect on everyone present at the time. Yu Zhang's influence, regardless of the peaks and troughs, never touched upon the level that Luo Nan needed to pay attention to. He just silently melted into the depths of the vast sea of stars. So Luo Nan's heart was truly without the slightest fluctuation. He prepared to give Papercut an explanation, but Papercut had already raised his hands in surrender. Forget it. I still need to help you deal with cat eyes in a bit, so I'll leave some brains for you. Let's go to the luxury room and take a look. Hey, the one I smashed at the Fudong store last time. It's also one, right? Luo Nan grunted. He had a stomach full of words, but he couldn't say them. His mood was a bit down. When they rushed to the luxury room in Area A, they saw Mo Peng's spittle flying from inside. He was talking about a certain person's magnificent feat at the Fudong store. I've definitely never been to this place before, but Nanster should have seen it before. Ha! He doesn't like this kind of place, right? Luo Biao was very familiar with Mo Peng's role as a supporting character. The two matched up seamlessly. Mo Peng laughed mischievously. He doesn't like it, but he can't stand bad luck. Last time, the Frost River Reality on Fudong Main Street was attacked by terrorists. It was smashed to smithereens. After the incident, I looked at the police data. Nanster and the others retreated along a route that included the room in Area A. That seems to be the starting point? Ha! Nanster was also a person who personally experienced it? Tong Hui had heard Mo Han mention this before, but he didn't know much about it. He was quite curious. Of course. You don't say. Today's group took up a third of the place. Me, Sister Pomegranate, Senior Sister Tian, and Brother Chi were all people who personally experienced it, but none of us played as big as Nanster. He was in the last batch to come out. Oh right, there's also Xue Lei. He was one of them. His dad was the special police captain in charge of protecting the mission. Mo Peng was dancing with joy as he spoke. Luo Nan and Xue Lei glanced at each other. They both kept their mouths shut and kept a low profile. Luo Nan wanted to deal with this group of people before talking to Papercut, Cat Eyes, and the others. However, Yu Zhang stood in the middle of the large room with flowing colorful lights and top-notch sound and light effects. All he heard were words like, attack, and smash to smithereens. His expression really didn't look too good. A call connected to his wristband at this time. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.